I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Public Safety and Transportation Committee. Today's April 5th. It's 6:33. We're right on time. Thank you everyone for being here and joining us tonight. We're going to start with today's meeting. And Angel, could you read the ground rules?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This is Angel Muscane, District Manager for Community Board 11. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us of any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information, like an email address, already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subject on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized.
Thank you for that, Angel. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Are there any objections? Let's move on to roll call.
Members, when I call your name, please respond present. Jose Altamirano.
Present.
Eric Alcancela. Diane Collier.
Present.
Carlos Diaz.
Present.
Judith Ferraro. Josendi Garcia.
Present.
Marissa Mack. Jessica Morris.
I'm here.
Miguel Pava.
Here.
Dawn Sanders.
Here.
Michelle Wilcher Clement.
Present.
Thank you. You have quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to adopt tonight's agenda. Any objections? Xavier, could we promote, Angel, could we promote Xavier to a panelist, please?
Sure.
Thank you. No objections, so we are adopting tonight's agenda. Let's move forward.
So move.
Thank you. Can you get the next all right. Announcements. Next meeting of this committee will be May 10th, 2022. I also, give me one moment, I had an announcement from Jessica from Parks. Just got it. Hold on a second. Okay, here we are. Environmental Open Spaces and Parks is going to have a East Harlem Earth Day conference on April 22nd. The invitation will be shared with everyone. So on April 22nd, there will be a CB11 Earth Day conference coming from our Environmental Open Space and Parks here at Jessica Elliott.
You can't make that bigger.
Okay. Do we have any other announcements from anyone?
I don't know if you have a camera. If you don't have a camera, they can't see you.
Okay, then let's move forward. Tracy, is that a Tracy Campbell? Is her hand raised?
Yeah, I have an announcement for street corner as well, but I'll wait until like
No,
a
please
little
go
bit
ahead.
after.
Now is the time for announcements. Go ahead.
Oh, now's the time. Okay, hold on 1 second. Give me, I'm actually driving.
Ask him if somebody could go before you.
Can somebody go before me and just give me like about probably 3 minutes if possible?
Okay.
You're
We'll just,
driving.
sure, no issue. We want you to be safe.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
All right, so we're going to start our informational updates and we'll get back to her announcement. We have Jessica Morris. You have your hand raised? You have an announcement?
I do, Jose. Thank you. It's been a while since I've been at the meeting, so I'm not sure that announcements has found its place at home at the beginning of the meeting. The announcement I'd like to bring to the table here is on behalf of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I became aware of semi-annual pedestrian and bicyclist count that they're conducting in East Harlem. At this point in Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's outreach, they're just looking for the right places to stand and count. So I will put a link in our collective chat, and for all of us here who have incredible depth of knowledge about our district, if you have any insight on where the best places to stand and conduct the count are, please offer that insight to DOHMH, which ultimately becomes pipelines to funding to support safety improvements on our streets. So link to the survey is in the chat. If you can further volunteer to help with that count, there's also an opportunity to say so in that survey. So I'm sure we'll learn more in months and years to come, but deadline for that initial point of input is April 31. So look for the link in the chat. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you. That's great information. I feel like I'm missing an announcement while we're waiting. I believe it had something to do with Harry and they were doing their street closing. Diane, you're on. When is that going to happen? Is that soon or do we still have time?
That doesn't have a camera.
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, Dan. I think Carrie was mentioning, you know, you guys, you do the, every year you do the park, you close on Park Avenue when you have an event.
The party on Park?
Yes. When is that
Okay.
date?
Generally, we do it in September, but we haven't gotten the approval to move forward because of the issues around COVID. You know, they're just lifting those restrictions.
Okay, so we still have some time to announce that.
We'll keep you posted on that. And the same thing is, we applied for the open streets on 101st Street and Pleasant Avenue, so we're waiting for approval on those two.
Thank you. And then we have from District Attorney's Office, Marco Perez, who is our new liaison.
Here.
His hand up for an announcement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jose, for that introduction. Again, my name is Marco Perez Jr., and I'm the new East Harlem Community Engagement Coordinator at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I have two announcements tonight. One is in regards to the 37th Annual New York Crime Victims Candlelight Vigil. We'll be co-sponsoring that this year. I know for the last 2 years, it was virtual. For the first time in a long time, it is in person this year. We invite all community members that are victims of crime or have lost loved ones due to crime to come share their stories and also just be in support in a powerful ceremony. The New York Crime Victims Candlelight Vigil will be on Sunday, April 24th, 2022 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at West End Collegiate Church, 245 West 77th Street at West End Avenue in New York City. That's my first announcement. My second announcement is the Gun Violence Prevention Fellowship that the DA's office is having for this summer. The deadline has been extended to April 22nd, 2022 at 5 p.m. The Gun Violence Prevention Fellowship is essentially an opportunity for two either college students, high school graduates or GED graduates by June of 2022 to apply and to craft gun violence prevention policy at the DA's office. Working on this summer project, it is a paid internship in which they work closely with district attorney staffers, as well as putting together a end of summer project to pitch to the DA, and hopefully the gun violence draft could be approved. And that is, again, the deadline for that is April 22nd, 2022. I've shared both of these flyers and opportunities with Angel. If anyone wants to have them sent to them personally, I will put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, please do. I'm gonna put my email in the chat as well, and you could email me all that information, and we'll get some kids to participate as well. That sounds like a lovely program.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Marco. Tracy, you ready for your announcement now?
Yes. Okay, so my name is Tracy Campbell, and I'm Street Corners Community Coordinator. I'm sorry, I'm still driving. Yeah, okay, hold on one second. I'm just gonna stop really fast. So pretty much, I just wanted to give you guys an update of what we have going on this month. Street Corner Resources has 206 days of no gun violence. Sorry, okay, no homicides. Hold on. Okay, sorry, you guys. All right, so Street Corner Resources have 206 days of no homicides, and we have 96 days of no shooting in our catchment. At this moment, we are hiring, and we have workshops for the community members, staff, and business owners, along with anti-violence and anti-bullying workshops for students and pretty much anybody in the community. We have resources that will help people get in employment, education, training, and a lot of opportunities at the moment. So if you guys know any kids, anybody in the community that's looking for a job, you could send them my email, or you could just send them down to the office and let them ask for Tracy, and I'll pretty much be able to help them. My number is 917-428-9094, and I'll give you guys a little bit more information in the chat.
I would love to just say one thing.
Okay, and here you go.
Hi, this is Aisha Sekou, and I just wanted to make sure I say one thing. I'm glad that Tracy is available to be involved with your community board, and so that would give us more inroad to help assist with some of the issues around violence within 9, 11, and 10. So if there's anything that you need support on that you see as a regular, like scaffolding, those are things that contribute to violence. Maybe people hanging in hallways. We need a concerted effort to bring those things to the attention of 311. So we begin, and especially to the DA's office with the hallways program, to begin to reinstitute that, because that is one of the places where we're seeing gambling and drinking and violence developing. So we'll be updating you, hopefully ongoing, when meetings occur, to let you know some of the things that we see that sometimes the average person doesn't see, because we canvass the community and we get calls. So, a lot of times those things are brought to our attention. The other thing is please feel free. If there is a specialty that you have that you would love to share with our young person, even if it's a one-time thing, even if it's a discussion that brings enlightenment around a career, of a situation, a life situation, something inspirational, please feel free to call us at 212-694-8759. That's 212-694-8759. We're all about community engagement, and community engagement helps us to keep have a way to keep the violence down. And if anyone's in need of support or counseling, you can call the same number. So thank you all. I just wanted to say hello and share that with you. So thank you. This is Aisha Sekou, and I'm the CEO and founder of Street Corner Resources.
Thank you. I have some hands raised. I'm not sure if it's in response to that. We'll start
Hands
with,
raised.
Officer Cosme, you have your hand raised?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share real quick that myself, Officer Powers, and our youth coordination officers are planning to put together a youth job fair. We're going to hold it at Manhattan Center High School on April 30th. It's a Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'll forward all the information so everyone can get it. If anyone here is interested or anyone that you may know is interested in doing some recruitment for the high school for our local youth, just please reach out to us and then we can include you in the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Diane and then Dawn.
Yeah, it's a question to Aisha and also to the DA. Aisha, you mentioned the home monitoring program. We knew it as the trespass program. And I guess that's the DA office as to whether or not they're going to reinstitute that.
You know, I think it would be valuable. I'll tell you real quick why. In most of these buildings, particularly I can speak for Harlem, but I'm understanding from meeting with other cure violence sites that it's kind of a trend now for the last, I say 3 years or so, and it's getting bigger, to hang out in the hallways of these buildings, particularly our pre-war buildings that still have community center size hallways, like where I live. It's they set up a bar on the shelf with all of the different alcohol. They smoke in the hallway, and they don't care if you have to pass that back and forth in order to get out of your building. And it's creating a fear factor for our seniors, for our young girls. It puts men around them more often, and especially men just recently released. I'm not trying to make them wrong, but we don't know who's who in the hallway. And so we have to begin to make our hallways safe. So you don't see as many on the corner anymore. They're inside the hallways like it's a club, smoking and drinking without regard for the safety and respect of our elders and our young people. So we definitely would love to see those what they call verticals, when they go up and down the stairs and check the roof and all of that. We need to bring safety back to our community.
Thank you, but the DA's office, Marco, this was brought up last time that the DA's office was at this meeting about their trespass program, and they kind of expired it, or what's happening with that? Are they bringing it back? So this is really what Aisha's talking about.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Collier. As you know, the TAP program has been dissolved in 2019, but the DA's office is currently working close with the NYPD and NYCHA to address trespassing, and we will get back to you on that. There is no solidified reinstitution of TAP at the moment, but we are working to address the trespassing, the encampments within residential buildings. And if you would like my information is also in the chat, you can also circle back with me, or you could put your information in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to circle back with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Dawn?
Yes, I was listening to some of the statistics that Street Corner Resources was giving. I think it was like 201 days with no homicides in your catchment. What is your catchment?
So pretty much we're from 145th to 137th and 136, all those blocks. What we do is we have a team, an outreach team that goes like pretty much from block to block to block. And we just, any kind of activities that's not supposed to be there, we pretty much stop it. Today, we prevented a fight from happening. Anything that's out of the ordinary, then we pretty much break it up, stop it, and then we do hospital response as well. So when we say our catchment, those are the blocks we're talking about, from 145th to 136.
And all the way from the river to the park, or how do you?
Well, pretty much we start from Lenox and then we go straight to Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So I'm so sorry, one more question. So is this like a violence interrupter?
So pretty much it's like we do anti-violence and we do gun violence. So anything to do, we don't like anything to do with violence, fights, arguments, like stabbings, anything to do with that, we're on scene. We're on call, we do hospital visits, anything to do with violence, we're there.
All right,
we don't support
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. We're gonna, it's becoming more of a presentation than but we may have to reach you back and maybe come in and actually do a presentation. But
Right.
we're gonna
Okay.
move forward now because we have an agenda to fulfill. We're gonna start our informational updates. We're gonna start with Officer Gibbons at 2-3.
Thank you, Jose. Peter Gibbons from the 23rd Precinct. Pleasure to be here tonight. Let me start with a very brief intro and talk about citywide crime. We're up 44% in major crime in New York City. Last time we spoke, it was 47%, so we're still stubbornly high. Citywide crime is up across the board. Every major category is up significantly except for murders, which is down 8.6%. That's 96 murders this year versus 105 last year. And shootings are also up citywide, 13.8. In the 23rd Precinct, year to date, we're up 18.4% in crime. It was 27% last time we spoke, so we're starting to turn a corner. We're heading in the right direction. For the 28-day period, the last month, basically, we're up 28.6% in major crime. We were up 49% the last 28-day period when I last spoke to you. So again, seems to be trending in the right direction, at least in the 23rd Precinct. I'm going to break it down by crime category. We haven't had any murders in the last month. Our last homicide in the 23rd Precinct was February 16th. So we're headed in the right direction there. Rape, we've had 2 rapes in the last month. Both are statutory rapes, which means that the victim was too young to consent. In one case, it was a 20-year-old suspect and a 15-year-old female victim. And then just last night, there was an arrest of a 27-year-old female teacher and a 16-year-old student. The student and the teacher and the school are all in the Bronx, but the actual rape was occurring here in the 23rd Precinct. Robberies, we are up 10 this year, in the last 28-day period versus 7 in 2021. So a slight uptick in robberies. What are we seeing? 4 of those incidents were shoplifting gone bad, which basically means someone shoplifting is confronted by a store employee and either pulls out a weapon or commits some sort of act of physical violence against that employee. We only had 2 domestic violence robberies, which is trending in the right direction. We had 2 delivery cyclists that were robbed. We had a bodega at 2100 Second Avenue, which is at 108 and Second, that was held up at gunpoint, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we also had the car wash at 109 and First held up at gunpoint on Saturday night, just a couple of days ago, at a very early hour, about 3 o'clock in the morning. So 2 gunpoint robberies of commercial establishments. Felony assaults, we are up 16 versus 9, 16 felony assaults in the last 28-day period versus 9 in 2021. 3 were domestic violence related. 8 were arguments, fights that devolved into physical violence, where someone grabbed an item and used it to assault the victim. You know, pipe, screwdriver, bottle, knife, a plastic crate. So a variety of items used in that type of thing. We've only had 1 shooting in the 28-day period. In fact, we've had only 1 shooting in the last 6 weeks, but this shooting was extremely dramatic. It occurred at 404 East 105 Street, which is the East River Community Center. So Scan Harbor operates that community center. What happened is the shooting occurred outside, but 2 of the center's participants, two 15-year-old kids, were shot in the legs in East River houses. They were running towards the center as their place of refuge. They had gone, they go to the center and they thought of it as a means of escape. They were banging on the glass outside because it was 9 o'clock at night. The door was closed and locked, but the manager and her staff were inside. The manager immediately ran to the door, recognized her participants, shepherded them into the center as the gunman is bearing down, firing shots. Just an unbelievable scene, extremely dangerous. Vanessa Ramirez is her name. I've met her. She's a lovely person. and extremely committed member of the Scan Harbor team. She saved these two people. I can't say it any differently. She saved their lives. The shooter was bearing down on them, like almost, it was execution style. He had them at the doorway. She pulled them in just as the shooter arrived. And in frustration, the shooter fired a shot at the glass of the center, but it's bulletproof glass. It did shatter, and Vanessa suffered some sort of like glass shrapnel wounds. Our officers responded to the center. They applied tourniquets to the legs of the victims. It was just a gruesome, awful thing to have happened to two 15-year-olds. The motive at this time is unknown. It's a very, very fresh investigation. There's a lot going on. We don't have great camera footage at this time. We do have the perpetrators on camera, but they're all masked up and their heads are covered. It's really tough to get any ID on them. But it may, because of how they were tracked following the shooting, there may be a Washington connection, Washington East River connection, possibly retaliation for the homicide of Devontae Butts on February 1st at 103rd Street and 3rd Avenue. But I'm merely offering that as a possibility. It's far too early to tell, so I'll keep you abreast. But the two children are safe now, and just an awful thing. But Vanessa Ramirez, Scan Harbor, just a hero that night. Moving on, next category, burglary. We're up 11 in the 28-day period versus 5 in 2021. Mostly commercial burglaries. Daniel's Music, if anyone's aware of it, on 101st Street and Lexington Avenue, burglarized twice recently. Church of the Resurrection on 101st Street, burglarized twice. Dunkin' Donuts, the new one at 106 in Madison, has gone through an awful time. A young man, 15-year-old, hit it 3 times where he was jumping over the counter, stealing cash from the terrified employees 3 times in one day. All right, so 3 times in one day, this guy goes in and burglarizes the place because it's open, but he clearly intended to commit the crime. And the next day we caught him doing it a 4th time. He literally was running out of the Dunkin' Donuts with cash in his hand, smack into Detective Smith, who corralled him and put an end to that reign of terror. Grand larcenies, 21 in the 28-day period versus 30 last year, so a significant decrease in grand larcenies. But by far our biggest problem, and please help me spread the word, I've said this many times about this particular crime, thefts from motor vehicles. Please don't leave anything in your motor vehicles. We've had so many thefts from motor vehicles, it's unreal. 71 vehicles were broken into, that we know of, were broken into in the last month in East Harlem, in the 23rd precinct, I should say. And in numerous cases, 13 in the last month and a half, say 13, they got property worth $1,000 or more. And in some cases, thousands of dollars in cash. People are leaving crazy stuff in their cars, laptops, designer handbags, credit cards, cash. Please spread the word. You can't do that. In certain areas, they're just breaking into windows and they're getting lucky. Okay. The areas that we're really, really looking at right now are 109th Street to 111th Street between 1st Avenue and 3rd Avenue. Our midnight officers arrested 3 people on Friday night, I believe. They found 3 guys inside the victim's car. They scattered, but they were arrested by the responding officers. So we're out there, we're working on it. There are a lot of, we're doing like an operation we're installing all sorts of temporary cameras and lighting in the area also, because we're really, really getting hit over there. So spread the word, please don't leave anything in your car. Lastly, grand larceny auto, GLAs. We had 9 in the 28-day period versus 5 last year, so that's an uptick. The biggest category of the real thing we're seeing there is Ford vans being stolen for their catalytic converters. And our neighborhood coordination officers cracked the case after 9 of them were stolen in February, and they arrested a 2-person team for numerous thefts of these Ford Econoline vans. But they're back. They're back there doing it again, and we've seen 3 in the last 28 days of these 4 vans. So that is my crime update, but I do want to touch on the neighborhood safety teams. We've read a lot about it in the paper. They have been deployed in the 23rd precinct and the 25th precinct for that matter. In addition, the 28th precinct, 32nd precinct, and 34th precinct. The neighborhood safety team is the evolution of our anti-crime team, our public safety team. Now it's the neighborhood safety team. It is a key pillar of the mayors and the commissioners' fight against gun violence and violent crime and on our streets. So we've had a team now for about 2.5, 3 weeks. Their primary mission is to get guns off the street, to focus on the drivers of the most violent crime, and focus a lot also on gang violence. Our crime team, our neighborhood safety team has, in that 2.5 weeks, has taken 3 loaded guns off the street in the hands of gang members or affiliates. So they're off to a strong start. We're hoping that, over time, we're going to see and we'll be able to report back in terms of real numbers about that certain types of crime dropping as a result of these guys being on the street. The team is composed of a sergeant and 5 officers, specially chosen for their abilities, their disciplinary history, their personalities, and their desire to keep peace on the streets of East Harlem. They're in uniform, which is a significant difference from our old anti-crime team. It's a little lower profile than what you'll see our patrol officers wearing or our public safety teams. It doesn't have the patches on the side, but it does have their name, badge number, precinct. It clearly says NYPD police in block letters on the back and the front of the uniform. And they will all be wearing that uniform. In addition, they'll all be fitted with body-worn cameras, or they are, fitted with body-worn cameras, which they will be required to activate prior to any interaction. They're going to work in our precinct between Tuesday to Saturday, between 5:30 p.m. to 2 in the morning. That's subject to change, but it's just statistically driven based on where and when the crime has happened. Last thing I want to mention, I finally get Jessica on the call. I've been doing traffic collision reports in depth and boring everyone with them, but you on them. So you're here, and I'll just give you a quick one because I know we're running behind. 2 significant incidents, 2 tragic incidences occurred in the 23rd precinct of late, and they have been, they touch on something that's been the focus of this committee. On March 26th, a man on a scooter going north on First Avenue in the bike lane, excuse me. It was an e-bike. It was an e-bike, not a scooter. Going north on the bike lane on First Avenue, right around East 111th Street. He swerved to avoid a pedestrian that was in the bike lane. He lost control. We don't believe he made contact with the pedestrian nor any other vehicle, but he lost control. He fell over off the bike. He was not wearing a helmet. He suffered severe head trauma. He's still in the hospital, critical but stable, but he's been in the hospital ever since March 26th. It's a significant injury there. And then on April 1st, a woman on a stand-up electric scooter was going the wrong way on 104th Street. She was going westbound on 104th Street towards 3rd Avenue and crashed into an 86-year-old woman, a pedestrian, crossing 104th Street on 3rd Avenue. And the woman was thrown to the ground, hit her head, and she passed away. So just 2 awful incidents relating to traffic in the 23rd precinct. And unfortunately with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Officer Givens. We're going to have the 2-5, Officer Closman and Officer Powers, and then we'll have questions at the end.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to start my report for the 25th precinct for the 28-day period. So far, we had 0 murders for the 28-day period. Robberies is up. We definitely had like a lot of robberies this past month in the zone. One in particular, we did have a bank robbery at TD Bank on 2144 3rd Avenue. An unknown male, he passed a note through the teller demanding money, and he was able to get away with $650. The investigation is still ongoing. So far, felony assaults is up by 85%. We had 21 in the 28-day period. 2 shootings is included in the felony assaults. The 2 shootings that happened, one was on March 16th in front of 336 East 126th Street. 2 unknown men were observed like getting into a verbal altercation. One pulls out a firearm and shoots him right in the arm. Fortunately, like, you know, he was okay. He was rushed to the hospital and he's expected to survive. The investigation is still ongoing with that. The second shooting we had just recently on March 31st, a male states that he was walking down the street past the 4 train on East 125 and Lexington Avenue. And that's when he heard multiple shots, and then he realized he was hurt. He was shot in the ankle. The investigation is still ongoing with that. He was able to make a full recovery. Burglaries is down. We only have 1 burglary for like the 28-day period. Grand larcenies, we had 23. Most of the grand larcenies come from 3rd Avenue, the Rite Aid, and the other one comes from the Dollar Tree that's right across the street. That's where most of our grand larcenies come from. A lot of them turn into felonious assaults too, because some of the workers who work there, they get assaulted by the people when they try to apprehend the person, but then they fight back and then they run out the store. So that's where most of the felonious assaults and grand larcenies come from. GLAs is down by 16%, but we still have a huge issue on 3rd Avenue where we have delivery people from, like, you know, Uber drivers. They deliver food to Taino Towers, but unfortunately they leave their keys inside the cars and someone gets inside the cars and drive off. So that's so far. But as far as like shootings, they're down, a lot of assaults down, but we just had like a lot of robberies. And like I said, most notably the bank robbery. The good thing that happened as well, as far as like the gun arrest, we had 1. The NCOs did receive a tip on March 22nd. Someone called and said that they saw a male carrying a weapon, like, you know, in the bag or whatever. He was back and forth, like, you know, holding it in his hand and putting it in his bag. Someone called, the NCOs were safely able to apprehend the person. As far as the traffic, collisions, so far they're down. Regular collisions is down by 1%. We have 81 in the 28-day period. We have injuries is down by 7%. We only had 27 injured. Luckily, no one was killed. There was no fatalities in these incidents. As far as the double parking issues, we did have a lot of complaints on 117th Street and Pleasant Avenue, like over by the mall. So our traffic officers have been over there heavily, and they've been issuing a lot of summonses, and it's been getting better because we've been going over there every day to check on the progress. And so far so good. Like, you know, there's not many complaints about double parking over there. There were a lot of complaints on 116th Street and Lexington Avenue, that corridor between Lexington and 3rd Avenue. So our traffic officers have been over there, like issuing a lot of summonses to the double parkers. Mostly, like, you know, they're doing deliveries and food, but we've been getting, you know, too many complaints in the area where, like, during rush hour, people are not able to get on the FDR Drive. So that's why we've been having our traffic officers go over there to, you know, to handle the situation. But so far, that's, you know, pretty good. And they've been issuing a lot of summonses over there. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Officer Powers. Appreciate your report. We have a question from Dawn. Go ahead, Dawn.
Thank you so much for your reports. I really appreciate it. And I know that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of hard work happening. So I almost hate to ask about something that's not in your report, but I am starting to get a little more concerned. And I know last time I asked about it, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. But the paper plates, I think last time I asked about the paper plates, there was like a big bust in the Bronx and a lot of cars were apprehended. So I still see a lot of paper plates, but now I see cars with no plates at all and tinted windows. So there was like a shooting in front of Taino Towers. A young lady was shot in the leg. And the person who was driving, they were driving a gray Charger with no plates and tinted windows. So of course, every time I see a gray Charger, I'm looking, and I actually saw a gray Charger with no plates. And so I'm just wondering, why are we getting to the point where people don't even put the plates on at all, not even put the fake plates on? People are driving around with no plates. Are those aren't your officers, right? Those aren't undercover or anything, right? Because it's getting a little scary that you can drive around with no license. So, or no license plate, I'm sorry. So I just wanted to know if there's like a group that's working on that, or do you have any suggestions? Because a lot of these drive-bys, the descriptions of our cars with no license plate, what are people supposed to do when they see that? Is that something they should call in? What would you suggest?
So we definitely have, units out there that are taking care of it, especially our NCOs. Unfortunately, it is a citywide situation, but like I said, our NCOs and like even people like our steady sectors, they take care of that too. So far in the 28-day period on our end, we do have 27 arrests. 26 of them are from suspended licenses or someone who don't have licenses at all. So, they do have units that are pulling people over with the paper plates and the fake plates. A lot of them are making them from like Microsoft Word or whatever program that there is, but they are bringing in, unfortunately, it's a thing where like, a lot of people are doing it, but we are taking care of it. Definitely. We are bringing, people in who are driving with fake plates and stuff.
Thank you.
Sad to hear that fatality that occurred with an e-bike. That is something that we're going to continue to work on because it continues to be an issue and a problem. Obviously, someone going against traffic is always going to be an issue. But we will continue moving forward. Do we have any other questions?
I see a question in the chat that I know the answer to.
I already answered. They're asking about who's in charge of 115. I told them that the south side is 2-3, the north side is 2-5. Apparently there is 115 Madison and 5th. There's double and triple parking.
And that's due to the mosque that's there. Go ahead.
So,
There's already been some interaction and go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I worked there for
I know
10
that there
years.
is a mosque and at that point, there is some leniency due to the religious observance. But we have two more questions from Michelle.
2-5 could speak to that mosque, but
Go
yes.
ahead.
No, you said it. It is what is religious observances, especially Ramadan just started this past weekend. So, the active mosques are going to have parking outside during services, and they try to work with us. We ask the mosques to have their congregants put their phone numbers and such location where they are inside the dashboard, but some people don't bother. But we continue to try to monitor that. Thank you.
For anyone that is Muslim, Ramadan has started. It's from April 2nd to May 2nd. Hold on. I'm pretty sure it's. Yes, April 2nd to May 2nd. So, I think that area may have to be patient anywhere near a mosque, or will definitely be significant religious observance. We have Michelle, then Jessica, then Xavier.
I just wanted to find out, thank you for your presentations. And even though they were definitely trying. It's good to know. And this is why we are here. I wanted to find out, because the time that Jose and I went to the 2-3 to hear about
2-5.
excuse me, sorry, to hear about the new team that was going to be placed onto the streets, there were only 3. I was curious to find out who the other 2 people, or if there are 2 people that were selected. Who were the
Yeah, I'm sorry, Michelle. Thank you for your question. Yes, we do have 2 new officers. They're currently being trained right now. Once they are completely trained and have all their equipment and everything, then we'll introduce them to you as well, okay?
I think it's very important to introduce them to the community.
Yes.
And also important for them. It really helps. It's a give and take situation. Thank you.
Jessica?
Thanks, Jose. And I appreciate all of the information and feedback and oversight that you all come to provide us with. I wonder, and this is maybe more of a hypothetical question, but is a question for the committee. Each month we hear sort of tragic instances, but in a recurring pattern. Prevention is clearly not simple. I guess, Officer Gibbons, I appreciate, and apologies to be missing in the months after asking for the collision to be included in the report back. From a perspective of serving on a committee looking to positively impact some of these incredible challenges throughout our district across precincts. How do we, and this is, like I said, a hypothetical question, how do we identify the issues as categories in a way to proactively support and work towards prevention? Some have lower hanging fruit with regard to prevention that we as community members can help support. Some are much more challenging. So I guess it's a goals related question with regard to how the committee continues to do its work. That would help me as an active community and committee member continue to support some of those points of encouraging prevention where we can most effectively, and continuing to work towards prevention where it's a much harder knot of activity that can't quite get to so easily. So it's a question about continuum of prevention, low hanging fruit versus really tough.
I mean, so we come we come on these Tuesdays once a month and we give an overview of the crime. And I hope it's not too discouraging. We try to sprinkle in a little crime prevention, but that's a completely different presentation that we do give a lot more than we do actually just a crime summary. We do these crime prevention presentations and we go through all the various categories of crime that are occurring in our respective precincts. And we talk about how people can avoid being victimized or how they can help us spread the word to deter or prevent certain crimes from ever occurring. But we can do that sometimes. I try to do it a little bit when I talk about certain types of things like, car break-ins and what not to do and where not to park, and scams sometimes when that's a big thing, how you guys can help us spread the word about how to avoid being a victim of scams. But there are things that we definitely can do, and we shouldn't get discouraged. And we can give give the presentation more of a crime prevention flair if you'd like in the future. That's something that you guys can discuss as a committee and decide.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Officer Gibbons. We have Xavier with a question.
Yes, this is to both our 23rd and 25th with our paper plate scams that are happening within the neighborhood. when you actually apprehend, are the vehicles impounded, or what is the process that ensues after that?
Yeah, the person, sorry, yes, once the arrest is made, the vehicle is impounded, it's inventoried, everything is taken out and held for safekeeping or arrest evidence, depending on the nature of the property. And the person could only redeem the vehicle if they showed that they were the true proper owner of the vehicle. And then they could only actually drive the vehicle away if they were a properly licensed driver and the vehicle is properly registered. So in most cases, they are not doing that. In some cases, they are able to show that they do own the vehicle, in which case they have to get a tow truck and tow it out of the precinct. Does that answer the question? I'm sorry.
Yes, and then a follow-up question. I'm presuming that's just the same for the 2.5. Is that correct?
Yes.
Officer Powers?
Yes,
that's
it's the
correct.
same, it's same
Okay.
exact process.
Same protocol.
Mhm.
Okay, so then a follow-up question, out of those that are being impounded, what would you say the percentage of people who have legitimate title to the vehicles are? And out of those legitimate titled vehicles, how many of them are properly insured?
Well, in regards to the 2.5, it's a very low percentage. Not a lot of people will come with the proper paperwork or the proper registration for the vehicle. So most of the cars are impounded. We still have a lot of cars that are impounded here at the 25th precinct. So I would say it's very, very low.
Yeah, same here. And then those cars are eventually brought to the pound in College Point. Yeah. So, and then from there, they hold them for a certain period of time before they are allowed to dispose of them in various ways, depending on the nature of the car.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Kyoka. Michelle and Xavier, could you lower your hand, please?
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me for looking slouchy, but I'm not feeling well. I just had a quick question, which is public safety related. And I'm sure I can call everybody, but I just wanted to ask in this forum. They are doing a round of taking down the encampments. I came on late, so please, if this was already discussed, I apologize. How are encampments being identified, and what is there like? Is there like a way that one encampment is able to be taken down over another? I don't know if that makes sense, but I know that the mayor has asked for these things to be taken down. How are they being identified by the local precincts?
They ask our officers to canvass the area. That's a term that we use to go block by block to see where any encampment might be, and then we just report back to our administration office, and then they let one police plaza know, and then police plaza arranges when appropriate for an intervention with DOH, sanitation, and the police. And that's periodic. Like we were asked to do that in February. Excuse me, like beginning of March. We just were asked to do that again at the beginning of April. So I think maybe, it seems like monthly, we're going to be doing canvassing for homeless encampments in the area.
Thank you, Gibbons. So just a follow up then. So as residents and community members, should we be calling 311 to report what we see, or should it be announced or having them identified within a community council meeting? What's the correct way to alert you guys?
I would contact your neighborhood coordination officer, because they've kind of been the point people in terms of providing the information to the admin folks here to transfer to 1PP. So it's really your NCOs. Maybe if you don't have contact with the NCOs, you certainly can call your community affairs officer, that, and 311. 311 calls will either be routed to, I don't know, Department of Homeless Services, maybe. And they will, they may ask the officers to look at a certain area to see if there's a homeless encampment, to confirm a call that they've received. But those are probably the three three best avenues for reporting a homeless encampment.
Yeah, just what he said, 311, still do the 311s because it's a paper trail. So, still call the precinct, call the telephone switch. And yeah, I would definitely say 311 and call us, the same ways.
Thank you, Kyoko. We have one final question from Cindy.
Thank you so much. I'm going to follow up with Kyoko's question regarding the encampments. Is there a protocol in place in order to provide support to the individuals who would be losing what they call a home? And if not, how can our committee provide support to those constituents and to support you, law enforcement, to actually make this a not so traumatic situation? There's been issues already with the encampments that have been taken down by individuals that weren't provided support. So they were just simply told that they needed to go. So are you guys familiar with the protocol in order to actually make this a non-traumatic transition for the homeless individual?
Yes, we are. And when we approach these individuals, like they're not in trouble, we offer them services, like especially like homeless services and stuff. So we have two in our command in particular, one on 116th Street, the Diversion Center, where we would have to escort them there. They offer shelter services. They offer job placement. They give them food. They give them clothing, and they allow them to stay there for like a few weeks until they give them these services. We also take them to 126th Street, where the clinic is, but they can also walk there as well. The one on 116th Street, we will have to escort them there. But at the one on 126th Street, they can just go in, or we refer them to there. They offer shelter services as well as like food, clothing, job opportunities, a place to stay. So we don't just go to them, issue summonses and, tell them that they have to leave. The number one thing that we do for them is offer them services. If they have to go to the hospital, we'll take them to the hospital. But yeah, we offer them services. We don't, issue summonses or things like that.
Yeah, and when the police approach a homeless encampment, we're actually the sort of the last people that they speak to. It's we're really there only in a support role. It's DHS, it's DOH, sanitation, and then us. So we're really only there just to make keep peace just in case. We're certainly not the primary contact people for that constituent. They're going to be offered services. They are asked to relocate, and then they're offered the opportunity to relocate by Department of Homeless Services, and they will give them the options and provide them the options. And if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. Protocol is that, from what I understand, if the services are refused, we leave. I believe there are a number of steps to that. It's not just we walk up and say, hello, can we escort you somewhere else and provide you opportunities? It's a conversation that occurs between the outreach people from DHS and DOH and the constituent. But that after all is said and done, if they say no, we leave. So, and I've talked to Detective Ross from our NC office who was at one of the homeless encampment encounters, and he said exactly what happened. Person refused and they left.
Okay, well, thank you so much for letting me know. I'll follow up with DOH to see how we can provide support in the upcoming challenges. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Cindy. I'd like to thank both the 2-3 and the 2-5 for always being here. We appreciate you always, all the hard work that all the officers do there. We're all about neighborhood policing, so we're glad that we have these strong relationships, and we look forward to continue working together. So thank you. We're going to move forward. We have the DA's office here. He spoke a little before, but See if Marco.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. In terms of our announcements, as I mentioned before, those two opportunities, there is no further update than the gun violence prevention program we're having and the 37th annual crime vigil lighting that is occurring on April 24th. It is in person now. I just want to reemphasize that. I know the last couple of ones we did was virtual, so please feel free to come out. And again, the crime victims candlelight vigil will be located on West End Collegiate Church, 245 West 77th Street at West End Avenue. Again, that's Sunday, April 24th, 2022. I put my email in the chat. If anyone has any questions about either the gun violence prevention program and/or the vigil, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Do we have any questions for Marco? No? Okay, thank you. And then we're going to move forward with DOT. We have Lyle Blackwood with us today.
Good evening, Jose. Good evening, everyone. Lyle Blackwood from DOT.
Glad to have you back, Lyle.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a couple of months. Yeah, I had to do some CB meetings with CB10 here and there, depending on when this meeting falls. So thank you for working with Jackie last month. She and I did speak afterwards, so she brought me up to speed. So thank you for working with us, for the time being, as meetings are on different days. But I have a couple of quick updates. Nothing too big. Just some reminders. First, in regards to milling and resurfacing, the milling and resurfacing season is currently underway. It started a few weeks ago. It's currently taking place citywide. We're currently in Lower Manhattan for the time being, and also in Northern Manhattan in CBs 9 and 12. I've been sending over the list of locations in Northern Manhattan to the 4 community boards uptown, even if it's not in your district, just so that you're aware of what's happening road-wise in case there's any milling and resurfacing or any locations within Northern Manhattan that anybody else wants to go to, just so that everyone's aware of what's going on. I'm not exactly sure when we'll be in CB11, but once I do know, I'll let the board know. We do have a weekly schedule for our milling and resurfacing. So once that comes across, which is usually towards the end of the week, prior to the week we're going to be there, I can send that information to the community board just to give everybody a heads up. When we go into the neighborhoods, we do post flyers ahead of time just so that residents are aware that we will be in the area. So when we do come, along with the updates or the heads up that I'll give to you, you should see some flyers on the ground. Second, just an update on the walkthrough on 96th Street that DOT had with Jose a little while back. Those requests for studies for the intersections along 96th Street that we discussed are still under review. No new updates yet, but we should provide them hopefully relatively soon. I'll keep you posted. I wanted to set up a few others. I know we discussed this in the past for the other major corridors along CB11, 106, 116th, 125th, and any others that might come to mind as far as locations you'd like to go on a walkthrough for. Just to advise, DOT had a meeting with the 23rd precinct not so long ago.
Okay, we're on track. No problem. But it's you can wait. Say you want to give us something, you can wait. You can wait too. So it's the perfect name.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was saying that DOT had a meeting with 23rd precinct not so long ago to discuss traffic and safety issues going on in their district, and they have agreed to come with us on any future walkthroughs in their area. So if you want to put some dates in the calendar, we can also bring the 23rd precinct along with us, the traffic safety division, whenever you'd like. I'm going to extend the same courtesy to the 25th whenever we're in their area. If any of the traffic safety officers want to come with us, along with our walkthroughs, the more the merrier. I'd be more than willing to have them. So If you want to put some dates in the calendar sometime in the near future, we can go out there and start to look at these major corridors and some intersections to see if there's anything we can do to improve them if necessary. And one last thing for me regarding the project on Pleasant Avenue, 117th Street. Still no new updates yet from our end, unfortunately, but when we do have them, we will definitely let you know. We're trying to see if we can do something ideally for this installation season, which is currently underway. So hopefully we should have some updates for you soon. But like I said, when we do have them, definitely we'll pass them along to you. And that's it for me.
I think you had some questions. Mr. Cosmos has her hand raised.
Me?
Yep.
I couldn't hear you that well. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. I'm gonna leave my email in the chat, just so that we can try to set up with our traffic safety officers to
Sure.
do that walkthrough with you. I would love that. Also, I don't know if this is like have to do with DOT, but we are trying to get some parking sign changed in front of basically this group of nuns host a food pantry twice a week for the community, and they don't have anywhere to load and unload their groceries or the things that they give out. So I've been in contact with DOT, but I haven't really heard anything back from them. Is it okay if I contact you in regards to that?
Sure, absolutely. I can leave my email in the chat also, and we can connect offline. That's no problem at all.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Officer Cosman, what location is that? The first and 118, 17, or what on the east side, right?
Yes, on the east side of the street.
We definitely will follow up with that.
Okay.
We have a question from Dawn. Jessica and Cindy, I'm not sure if you ever lowered your hand or if you had a question.
Oh, I didn't lower my hand. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Dawn, go ahead.
Yeah, so hi, Lyle. I'm just wondering, I was still waiting to see your email. Are we gonna get any kind of a heads up on what your plans are with the hardened bike lanes or changing the directions of the lanes on First Avenue? Because we've just been kind of asking DOT workers out in the streets what's happening. And it'd be great if you started sharing this information with the residents. I'm not sure if you share it with just the elected officials, but it would be great if we could get a heads up as you make these changes, and, let us know who told you that those changes were necessary.
Okay.
So I guess that's two questions in one. What are you going to do? And are you going to ask us, or are you just going to tell us, or we're just going to find out from the workers as we usually do?
I'll see. I know that I'll see what I can find out for you as far as any upgrades to bike lanes within CB11. I think those should be underway, if not now, then fairly soon. I'm not sure within CB11 particularly, but I think citywide. But anything in regards to CB11 in particular, I'll see if I can get some information for you and pass it along.
And could you also just check, like, we had a visitor a few months ago from a church, and the bike lane that was put in front of his church is such that his elder residents can't get into the church. And just, I know that this is just way above our pay grade, but if you could start finding out how these decisions are made and either post some signs for people or, do some sort of a community engagement, I really think that that's going to start to become more necessary as you make more changes.
Do you know where the church is located by any chance?
I'd have to look into the notes, but the gentleman was here. Say that?
116th and 5th.
Oh, I think this guy was near White Castle on First Avenue, but I'd have to look back in the notes.
First Avenue already has protected bike lanes.
Okay, so maybe it was 116th and 5th. The point is that no matter where your church is or your senior home, the DOT is going to make changes, and they are not going to tell people And so, I'm just trying to see how we can get ahead of that.
Well, usually, when it comes to bike lanes, we usually do give advance, notice. When we come to the community boards, any bike lanes we've put down, we've come to CB11 or any community board ahead of time. We normally wouldn't put down any bike lanes without either community notification or at least coming to the community board. So if there's any we put down, and for the one on Fifth Avenue, if that is the one, I know we've definitely come to the community board many times to have that conversation and done multiple walkthroughs along that stretch. So we've definitely notified everybody along that stretch of the bike lane coming prior to it being installed. So
okay, so 111th and First, let's just get specific. 111 and First, the DOT workers told us that they're going to put in a two-way protected bike lane on First Avenue.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar to you?
I don't have any specifics. Like I said, I can reach out to our bike group to see where they're looking at in particular, and I can get back to you. I don't have that list in front of me currently, unfortunately.
That's the kind of thing that we would like to know about. We don't want to have to ask the workers on the street and then take their word for it.
Okay.
And then, in fact, if you're going to put a two-lane bike lane on First Avenue, which is protected, we would like to know. We would like to talk to you about that as you're making those plans.
Like I said, if there's certain locations within CB11, you can just send me an email and I'll see if I can get some answers for you.
Okay, we'll definitely follow up with that. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
Jessica?
Thanks, Jose. Thanks, Lyle. I've been gone for some time since I think I got really excited about the commitment to doing some walkthroughs, and it sounds like they're going really well, and extending the invitation, Lyle. That's really super fantastic. Sounds like an effort on DOT's part to solve some of these challenges, incredible challenges. Is, just to clarify, the point of the walkthrough exercise is to identify potential traffic calming interventions that could happen fairly immediately if problems are identified along the walkthrough routes. Is that the baseline intention of the walkthrough?
Our first walkthrough that we did with DOT, Jessica, was exactly that. We did it on 96th Street. We went from the drive all the way to 5th. And basically at every intersection, they brought one of their DOT engineers that was very knowledgeable on timing and everything else that we requested. We requested some lead times for certain traffic to give pedestrians, for instance, a 4-second lead time at a period where both lights are red, which is something that this committee discussed prior. Obviously, not a full traffic change, but at least a 4-second lead start. They actually had a lot of, and we already knew this, that they had a lot of the improvements that we want in the rest of our neighborhood already on 96th Street. So we kind of took that as an example, and now we'll do 106 next and then kind of go up through the neighborhood. But it was really cool when we did it. So we kind of waited for a little more appropriate weather, which is now.
And Jose, just to follow up too, and I'd like to hear Lyle's perspective. I think one thing that is not super well utilized that is on the Vision Zero tracker are mid-block crossings and speed humps. I think those things take a fair amount of time to kind of get support for, and they are super effective traffic calming measures where we have so many super blocks in our district. Is there maybe a sort of a level of understanding that our district in particular could serve to gain with regard to some of those tools that aren't so readily used elsewhere that might be super effective in instances here in East Harlem, specifically based on the nature of the super block configuration?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we could, like I said, there's certain locations within CB11 that you feel, might need an upgrade or might need to have, further analysis by DOT for whatever reason. We can always take a look at it. We can conduct a study. We can, take a little bit more of a closer look to see from a traffic and pedestrian safety standpoint, we can do things as far as improvements. So it doesn't necessarily be a major project or anything that we would come to the board, like we normally do. Like we're doing with the walkthroughs now, there might be some simple things you can do. I'm sorry. There's some, there might be some simple quick fixes that we can do that might make things, faster in the interim. So yeah, if there are certain locations, and all it takes in most instances is one request. Like if there are locations where you feel that a speed hump is needed, you can always reach out to DOT individually and say, hey, I'd like to see if you guys can conduct a study, for a speed bump. It could be anywhere, or like I said, all it takes is one person to make the request in order for us to look into it. So
for speed bumps, how about mid-block crossings? Are those something that need some support for?
Yes, if you have a particular location, you can always reach out either to me or you can.
What is wrong?
Sorry. There is an option on the DOT site. If you ever go on there, and you can click on the contact DOT tab, and you can also make a request for DOT to look into either mid-block crossing, speed hump, anything as far as a request. That comes onto our side as a case, and it goes to the appropriate division at DOT for their research and study. And if they think it's feasible, they can move forward with improvements or upgrades. Like I said, it doesn't, all it takes is one person to make a request.
Thanks, Lyle.
No problem.
Yeah, we have a few of those near schools. Definitely a discussion we're having. And I'm going to reach out to Lyle so we can get a couple of dates for the next walkthrough, which would be 106th Street.
Yeah,
we can forward to having we have Judith now.
Yes, I hate to bring this up because it's been brought up ad nauseum about all these electronic vehicles, skateboards, etc., on the sidewalks. I think at one time we asked about a sign being put up that if anyone is caught riding these electronic vehicles on the sidewalk, that they would be fined or something. I mean, on Madison Avenue, it's constant. They're always on the sidewalks. I mean, and people are getting hurt. So, I mean, what can be done about that?
I'm not sure if we can have signage for that in regards to sidewalks. Ideally, theoretically not supposed to, bikes should not be on the sidewalk. Bikes are considered vehicles. They should be in the bike lane, or on the street. It's an enforcement issue as far as any bikers being ticketed. We don't, DOT is not an enforcement agency. So right now, that would be those bikers would have to be ticketed if they're on the sidewalk, and not on the bike lane or in the street. I can ask as far as signage related to that. I'm not sure if we would do something like that, but like I said, I can ask the question and see, if it's possible. But ideally, it is an enforcement issue as far as any bikers that are on the sidewalk, ideally to be ticketed. Unfortunately,
Lyle, they fly by in front of buildings. If people are coming out of their lobbies, they can get hurt. I mean, and this is constant. I know it's ad nauseum that we've been talking about this, but this is a problem. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll see. I'll ask about the signage and I'll get back to you.
On 117th, I just want to remind you that our biggest issue that we had with the current project was the separation for the pedestrians. Your initial plan of DOT was to have semi-permanent, like plastic bollards, which a vehicle could easily run over and park there. And this committee was looking for, if this is something for pedestrians and something that will improve pedestrian walkway, we definitely need to be able to protect our pedestrians. So we're looking for something that is more permanent. And I need you to please go back and remind the DOT team that's in charge of this. I will also be reaching out, but that is our major concern in regards to the to that extension of 117th Street for the pedestrian walkway.
Yeah, ideally it's ours too. To have more of a hardened separation between the pedestrians and the drivers.
That's
one
correct.
thing is the maintenance, as far as, the maintenance, of that, which is pretty much where we're at now as far as an impasse. But, we're trying to work that out, with all the stakeholders involved. So to this point, like I said, no new updates, but, ideally that's what we're trying to do too. But we'll definitely keep you posted, and I'll relay the message as well, just to remind them as well.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you. And I believe that we're done with our information updates. We are at 7:52.
Thanks, everyone.
Schedule. Thanks, La. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Here we are. So the main event, I believe Debbie Quillones is going to be presenting this project.
Yes.
Go ahead, Debbie, show us yours.
Should I start?
Please.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity to present on behalf of the Friends of Hiram Maristani, who are Art Space 109, Rolando Cortez, the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, Friends of Art Park Alliance, First Spanish United Methodist Church, La Fonda Restaurant, Landmark East Harlem, the 111th Street Old Timers, the Cecily Tyson Street Naming Committee, the Young Lords, Ray Perez, Carmen Vasquez, We Are El Barrio, and Young Buck Sports, to request support for the co-naming of the southeast corner of 111th Street in Madison as Hiram Maristani Way. A lifelong East Harlem resident, he was the second director of the Museo del Barrio and the official self-taught photographer of the Young Lords, whose images have been exhibited in the Smithsonian and the MoMA, to name a few. Sotheby's has described him as the most prolific and consequential Latinx photographer of the latter part of the 20th century. This co-naming at the site of his former home and half a block away from the Young Lord's office will serve as a permanent marker to honor his legacy and his impact in his beloved East Harlem. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, one more thing, the online petition has just reached 695 signatures as well, that you can add to the packet.
For those of you who don't know who Hiram Maristani was, as you heard from Debbie's information, he's a very famous East Harlem self-taught photographer. Some of us had the pleasure of meeting him prior. Unfortunately, he recently passed away on March 10th. Due to his overall, everything about him was East Harlem. He was also the director of sale. I don't remember, but it was in the 70s. I don't know the exact years. We would have to check.
Jose, you're breaking up.
Sorry, it just could be the connection. But he was also the director of El Museo for a few years.
He was the second director. Actually, he was the second director of the Museo del Barrio and the official photographer
And he
for
was
the Young
always
Lords.
very, very active with the Museo. My understanding is typically we ask for a month. Typically there is a council waits a few years after a person's death. However, due to the relevance of this individual and how important he was to the community and everyone here that knew him, obviously the significance involved, as pointed out, Debbie, that his work has been in the Smithsonian and the MoMA and other very famous places. The city council is going to, what's the word, bypass the time period that is typically given. And they want to push this forward. So this is something that we're going to be voting on tonight. So if there are any questions, I would like for anyone involved to ask away while we have Debbie here. Jessica, is that a previous hand or is it current hand?
Always a question, Jose. It's a new hand.
Go ahead.
It's a very simple question, Debbie. I'm not sure there's a good answer, but who is going to throw the party?
I'm sorry?
Who is going to throw the party?
What do you mean? What party?
For
I mean, it's it's an incredible recognition and celebration of not only a life, but a history.
Yes, and thank you for that. There is a separate group of people that are working to organize the memorial, and that's going to be on May 15th at the Museo del Barrio in conjunction with the Center for Puerto Rican Studies and a few other groups. And then there are a number, there's the Museo del Barrio is going to have a retroflective, I can't even say it, a solo show for him that was in the works coming up next year. So there's a number of things that are going to occur continuously and annually. And this is one of the first things that we hope will be supported in a way that we celebrate him and his legacy.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? As we pointed out, this has kind of the whole backing of the city council already. We are going to vote on it tonight instead of waiting as we typically do because of a time period. If it goes out this month, then they're able to do this in the summer. If not, they have to wait for the fall. And obviously the summer is a more enjoyable time for the party, as Jessica pointed out. So I'd like anyone and everyone to, ask your questions so that everyone can feel comfortable. Obviously, this individual is so famous that, hopefully everyone here has heard of him. If they haven't, please, now is the time. Okay, so with that, I don't see another hand unless I'm missing it. Nope. Okay. Okay.
So are we going to vote on it?
We're going to vote on it tonight.
Process,
Yes. We would like to have a vote tonight, which means that if you'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the street naming for Hiram Maristani
On the southeast corner of 111th Street in Madison.
I'm sorry, are you breaking up?
Could you say on the southeast corner of 111th Street and Madison Avenue?
That is correct.
Okay. So would I get a second to that motion? Michelle, are you seconding that motion?
I am seconding that motion.
Okay, so now we have a motion on the table, and let's do a formal roll call vote. Angel, if you would, please.
Certainly. Jose Altamirano,
Yes.
Erica Cancela, Diane Collier,
Yes.
Carlos Diaz,
Yes.
Judith Febraro,
Yes.
Osendi Garcia,
Yes.
Marissa Mack, Jessica Morris,
I have a question, Angel. This is all moving really fast. My answer is yes, but I have a question following on. If we can revisit after the vote. Thank you.
So we'll wait for the vote and then we'll ask the question.
Miguel Pava, Dawn Sanders,
Abstain.
Michelle Wilcher Clement, I couldn't hear you, Michelle. Say that one more time.
Yes. Can
Thank
you hear me?
Yes, got it. Thank you so much. The motion passes.
Thank you. Jessica, your question?
Yeah, Debbie, can you tell us the significance of the location? Is there?
The significance of the location is that that's where he took a lot of his original pictures, and that was the site of his childhood home. He grew up on that block, and then half a block over was the site of the Young Lords headquarters as well. So there's actually a film that I could probably forward it to you that shows you 111th Street in the 60s, and it was just completely different, a whole different vibe. The life, the vibrancy was just so present that you would just not believe what it was and what it is now. And this is part of that story.
I appreciate that. And I might just, for reference, I'm a geospatial person, like things relate to other things. I know Tito Puente Way is not far from that location, though it's not right next to that location. Having served on this committee for somewhere upwards of 3 years, which is a drop in the bucket relative to some others, I think getting an understanding or being responsible for, in some ways, where all of these things sit relative to other street namings in our district is something to continue to be curious about. I think from our perspective of giving support, but also asking questions about appropriateness of location and fine tuning that if there is any potential conflict. We would be the place that would essentially bring that up, I think, on a first point of review. So I might, and I'm happy to throw points on a map if we have a list of named streets in our district, so we can just understand our memorializing of relationships relative to one another from a historical perspective. Thank you, Debbie, for the history.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and you are absolutely correct about the work that we do in regards to street renaming. Okay, so we're going to move forward. We have another presentation, a street code naming request in honor of Carmen Maristani Ward, southwest corner of 111th Street and Park. Who's here in regards to, is that also you, Debbie, presenting?
I've worked with them and I've supported them on this process because Carmen Ward was another amazing community builder that set the tone for so many things here in East Harlem, that protected young people, that protected just parents.
Who's here to present?
So she's the one that's gonna do it.
Who's she?
I think it's there. She should have gotten the note.
Yeah, she's here. It's her daughter Miriam LaFosse, and she's on.
Right.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Margie LaFosse, and I'm the oldest daughter of Carmen Ward, Maristani Ward. And I started this project about 2 months ago, and I was told to get letters from residents and from businesses on 111th Street, Park in Madison, where my mother and I are from. But there are no buildings, just 2 brownstones on 111th. So what I did was, when I downloaded the petition, it said that I can go like a 2-block radius. So I decided the nursery school, which is on 106th Street, that I'd go to the businesses in that area to request the 10 letters that I needed to for the recommendation of the street name changing for Carmen Maristani Ward. And the reason I believe that she merits this is because she's done many things in the community as an activist since the middle 60s. And unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy going to the nursery school because I was already 8 years old when this project started. So my family and we did put in this request because Carmen was very instrumental in East Harlem and Spanish Harlem, particularly on 111th Street between Park and Madison. So we are requesting that the southwest corner of 111th Street and Park Avenue be named Carmen Maristani Way because of all her accomplishments. And we feel it's very important to show her name and that we see that and be reminded of her accomplishments over the years. And she died in 2019, but it was very difficult for me to do this project because I had to go through all her information to create her biography, and it was very difficult. And I really did not know a lot of the things my mother accomplished because I was very young and they were so busy. But now that I have researched all of this information, I know my mother so much more now, and I felt it was important to make copies of the history of 111th Street and to inform the residents and in our community of what my mother and other people have done to make these things happen in our community. And I'm very proud of my mother, and as a family and friends, we just feel that even up until she died, she was on the board. She was a board member of Youth Action, Youth Builds, and she wanted me to join that board. And she just was very active. And if she was still here, she'd still be active. So I just feel that I need to do this for my mother, and there's nothing that I can do besides this to repay her for what she did in this community. Thank you. Thank you. I can't hear you, sorry.
Thank you. We're gonna have some questions. We have Michelle, followed by Carlos.
Okay.
Hi, I thank you for your presentation, and
Yeah.
I know it was not an easy thing to talk about and and to request and to go through, but you gave so much information in the readings that you sent earlier. I just wanted you to elaborate on some, you said that she was part of one of the boards, but I want you to really explain some of the other things that she was a part of, to really bring to life part of what she did in more specific ways, in more details.
Okay, well,
Let me also help out. I'm a member of Community Planning Board number 11. I knew Carmen for many, many years. I was born and raised on 111th Street between Park and Lexington Avenue. So Carmen is one of the first ladies I've ever met who had a daycare center in that block back in the 60s. 94 East 111th Street, if I remember correctly. I think she owned the brownstone there, or she worked out of the brownstone there. She was very active in the community, just as active as Hiram Maristani with his photography. Carmen was a spectacular woman when it came to servicing the community, helped everyone who spoke only Spanish. She was bilingual, she was very active in the community. So when I worked with Carmen, and I knew Carmen, she was very, very supportive of the East Harlem community with her brother. So I'm tremendous grateful for what she's done in East Harlem going back into the 60s, where a lot of things were not happening, where she was very active in being involved with the seniors, being involved with the youth, being involved with the daycare centers of the community. So she held one of the biggest daycare centers in East Harlem back in the 60s. And that was on 94th East 111th Street. And that was Carmen Ward. So when anything, you needed anything from Carmen, she was always present and she was very supportive and she was always someone you could talk to. So that's how I've known Carmen for many, many years, and I'm definitely in support of naming the street after Carmen because I knew not only Carmen, but I also knew Hiram Maristani. And Carmen was a go-getter, a giver, and someone that supported this community for many years.
Can I add specifics to that? Specific organizations that she was involved with was the founding of the East Harlem Block Schools. She was involved with young youth action programs. She was involved with, at the time, poverty programs. When we had all of the 1960s poverty prevention programs. She also was involved with the development of substance abuse programs for bilingual, with bilingual counselors. Her range of human services was so vast that there was a lot that she touched, but there was a lot that she built. She worked with Hunter College in their program to do some archiving as well. She was more on the human services side, but the work that she did was empowering a lot of parents, that she freed up parents to get work so that with the daycare, my son even went to East Harlem Block School as well. So I'm just saying that there are families in East Harlem that were instrumental in the fabric of the community. And the Maristanis were one of them. And this honor would really, really tell that story.
Thank you. I just really wanted to, it's nice to have the whole, the story really blossom and hear it from different perspectives, especially when there's so much emotion behind it. So the more details, the better in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. The focus is that she was an activist, particularly for early childhood.
Yes.
And that's something that didn't exist in our neighborhood at the time. And obviously that has shown that it makes a huge difference in all children when they do get that early childhood education. We have two questions from Jessica and then Diane.
Thanks, Jose. And thank you. I appreciate committee members' sort of interest in expanding the conversation, directing to the strength of the letters that were submitted in support of the application. One question I have, and please forgive me if I am just not knowledgeable. Can someone please help me understand the family tree, if we have one here? If I need to rephrase the question, I can. And Jose,
when you say I mean, I don't know if it's for me to answer, but the thing is that it was Hiram, Carmen. I mean, Margie, if you want to talk, please.
Yeah,
Talk.
I think I was asking Margie. I forgot the name. Go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, two other brothers and a sister, I remember.
Right, Victor. They had Victor. They had Alita.
Right.
Right.
There was one other one.
Right. I can't remember the other one. She was a teacher. I think Victor was a musician.
So here it was. Hiram was Carmen's father. Is that correct or no?
Brother.
Well, Carmen was Hiram Maristani's brother.
They're siblings.
Good. Okay.
Which is why they're the importance of kind of doing them together.
So wait, just clarify one more time. Hiram and Carmen are brothers.
Yes.
Brother and sister.
Yeah, they're siblings. Yes.
Siblings. Correct. Fantastic. Of 5, you said, Debbie?
I think so. I don't want to be quoted on. I can't.
It's about 5, if I remember correctly. Yes.
I'm like 4 or 5. I'm not sure.
We're only doing 2.
Well, no, I mean from a clearly extraordinary people, and I think the pace of things. Jose mentioned that the pace of things was out of the ordinary in our initial vote, and I think that maybe sets a not a great precedent to sort of push forward, and then are we returning to our standard practice here? I am so delighted by, uplifted, and excited to begin to learn more about this sort of deep history of people who worked to build East Harlem that we know now today. And I think it's important to kind of go to the depth of reading through each one of these letters and really understanding what the constellation of support at a time when there wasn't very much for a community and a future that was very much found in supporting kids and supporting families because their kids had a safe place to go during the day. So I'm not sure I know enough right now to sort of say yes, but I'm learning more in each minute of kind of unpacking and reading and continuing to understand where this legacy is coming from and how it's all connected and what that means for the history of our streets now today in 2023.
Can I just add, this happened serendipitously. This was not planned. This happened serendipitously. This really did not, this was not a coordinated effort. Because Carmen died before Hiram. And it just, I just want to be very clear that this was not a coordinated effort, that this happened very serendipitously. So it was just one of those like, oh my God, type of things.
Per our typical procedure, which is something I put in place since I became chair, because being a newer member, I always felt that I was rushed every month to make a decision, and sometimes I wasn't that informed. And that's the reason that we put this procedure in place where we do things one month, we vote the next. However, even from a request from City Council, that these individuals had such a strong recognition in the community that it's almost like saying like everyone knows them. Typically, it's our burden to actually do that, to go and before we had some street renamings that the city felt were not up to par, and they were sent back, that they needed more significance. And obviously, it's an honor, but we have to take it seriously, right? So due to the extenuating circumstances, we were asked to make an exemption, and we are making an exemption. We already did one. We're going to move forward. Diane had another question, and then we're going to see if we do a motion and we move forward.
So is there anything written? I don't see that. Did you guys send out the information to the committee? Hello?
Jose, may I answer?
Yes, the application package with all supporting materials were sent along with the agenda to the committee.
Yeah, it should be in your email.
I checked that while you were talking, and I
think it's an attachment of a bio of Carmen.
I didn't find it. I'll go and look while you guys are talking. And the other question I have, is this near Sendero Verde?
Sorry?
Is this on the block of Sendero Verde?
Abby's pointing her hand, but she's on mute.
It's across the street. It's not on the block of, it's on the block where the buildings where they grew up on. So it's not the block of Sendero. It's not 111 to 112. It's 111 and 110. So it's on that side. It's not that block.
Okay. Let me go look, because.
And we have the letter of support from the co-op that was built there, the La Celia?
Yeah, I know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me go look for the package, because at this point, I don't know if I can vote for it.
Fair. Any other question?
Jose, sorry, I understand why we moved forward with the first vote without a pause. There seems to be, and are you suggesting that moving forward with this vote is coupled with that recognition and momentum?
That's what I've been led to believe. But again, I mean, the committee can see, the vote, how it was. So definitely we were told Hiram would be, considering that he just passed away, they were going to exempt the period of time that you need. Because typically if you pass away, you can't get a street renaming, I believe, for like 3 years or 5. City Council is bypassing that. This is his sister. So I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if it's just serendipity or if it just happened to be that way. I wouldn't have an issue waiting until we get more information as well. Angel, do we know? You have your hand raised?
I was just going to make a comment about something else.
So then, so I know for a fact.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, we have 3 more questions and then we'll
Okay.
do the motion. But yeah, I've been led to believe that it's kind of a package. Angel, Diane, then Michelle.
Thanks, Jose. I just kind of wanted to add a couple of comments if I can. We've been doing street renamings ever since I was hired by the board a million years ago. And not that anyone asked, but the ones that I've always found the most impressive are the ones for these community heroes, these unsung community heroes, like Carmen Maristani Ward, folks that did the work when, the powers that be were not, that did the work, up against, gale force winds and tons of resistance, did the work that was needed to be done to serve their communities for the purpose of serving their communities. I get very excited when I see these kinds of applications. There's always like, somebody was a movie star and that's all cute. But I really get excited about the local heroes that, made impacts directly on generations of, youth that are now, the adults that are in this community that benefited from the program that they founded, lo those many years ago when such programs are not being made available to communities like this, where the administration after administration was seeing fit to not provide the services to the necessary degree to address the needs of communities, especially non-English speaking communities, like much of East, El Barrio was for so many decades. So to see, champions like Miss Ward and Willie Soto that we did one for a couple of years ago, those are really exciting, right? Because it's the kind of work that people, frankly, like that are on this board are doing quietly to support their community today. And these were your predecessors that, that did the impactful and meaningful and lasting work to set the stage for you all to be doing your work today. So I just wanted to add those two comments because I find these kinds of applications inspiring.
Thank you, Angel. As do I. We have, Diane, is that an old hand or is that a new hand? While we wait, Michelle?
I'm taking my hand down.
The reason why I had asked earlier to give more details, because when I was reading the 57 pages of information that was sent about this amazing woman, I was just blown over by all the things that she has done. And I know that there was probably a whole lot more. And I just wanted to make sure that it was stated for the record, since we are recording this, that she lived such a full life and really herself out and her family, taking the photos and she doing the grass work on the ground with so many children so that parents could elaborate on what they wanted to do with their lives and then bring up their family. It did touch on me a lot that was she really the first individual to create an independent school in the nation? That I wanted to fact that out. I wasn't sure about that. That was my own.
The answer is yes, and it was the daycare on 111th Street on Park Avenue, in Park and Madison. That's the block they grew up in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It was a very, very impressive package.
They had 3 sites. Well, they expanded to 3 sites, and they had one on Madison and they had one on 106 as well.
Jessica, is that your question?
Hmm?
No, I was asking Jessica if that was a new hand or previous hand.
It is a new hand.
Go ahead.
And, so again, I kind of bring up the sort of vocational placement. I think, I'm not sure what Diane was getting at with the relationship to Sendero Verde. Is the importance to have these 2 streets very close to one another? It seems like Carmen had impact at other particular locations. I guess I'm just raising that as a question. I think from a placemaking and a kind of historical cultural understanding perspective, absolutely the sort of more firepower that you pack in a concentrated area, the more awareness and understanding you're going to build by people walking by, making connections and just celebrating generally in a place.
Right.
It's a question of, I don't know the answer, but I feel responsible for asking the question, appropriateness of location and whether one is contingent on the other, and if that's okay, and we generally support that.
If I may, If I may, I think that when you talk about historical placemaking and telling the stories and the development of the community, it's important to go to the source where the actual building was 64 East 111th Street, where she worked out of that building, where she had the kids going into that building, the parents coming in out of that building. The dynamic of that block was clearly an important one. So I would not, I think that it would be disappointing to put it in another space when that's the space that told the story. And the fact that it's across the street from a new development, it'll be an opportunity to educate new residents about the place that they're coming into.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Diane?
So never a last word, but I did find the paperwork. Whereas, is Hiram her son or brother?
No,
or?
brother.
Hiram was her brother.
Hiram
Okay,
was her
but-
brother.
Okay, so, but here's my point, and Angel said it quite eloquently. There are so many unsung heroes in this community, people who worked very hard to even get us to where we are now, and we still continue with the struggle. So the things that she did, she obviously did it without all the funding that you would get today. And so clearly, sometimes we need to recognize our heroes, our sheroes, especially as the community changes over time. So if you're ready to take a vote, I'm ready to say what I'm gonna do.
So I would like to make a motion if I may.
All right. I got one last question, Miguel.
Oh,
Pava. I'm happy that you found it, Diane, because I was like, I don't know how you missed it, but I'm happy you found it.
If
Miguel?
you saw how many emails I get, you'll understand.
Jose,
Go ahead,
I
Miguel.
would just like to make a motion to vote, I guess, to approve the naming of it. So,
Thank you. Carlos has been asking for it, so I'm gonna let
Yeah,
Carlos make the motion, and then I'll let you second it.
second, all right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Carlos, go ahead and make the motion. Make sure you read the corner, which is the southwest corner of 111th Street and Park.
Park.
Naming of the street of Carmen Ward, the southwest corner of 111th Street and Park Avenue.
Okay, so Carlos, make the motion. Miguel Pava has seconded the motion. Is that correct, Miguel?
Correct, Jose, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
And now we will have a roll call vote from Angel for the.
Jose Alvarado,
Yes.
Erica Cancela, Diane Collier,
Yes.
Carlos Diaz,
Yes.
Judith Febraro,
Yes,
Josendi Garcia,
Yes.
Marissa Mack, Jessica Morris,
If I didn't vote yes, I'd be thrown out for cultural ignorance, but this is really important and excellent. I look forward to learning more. That's a yes.
Okay. That's not fair. You made me look. Miguel Palma,
Yes.
Dawn Sanders,
Abstain.
Michelle Wiltshire Clement.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward.
Thank you so much. I can exhale.
Thank you, Debbie. Always a pleasure to see you.
Love you guys. You know I'll be back, right?
I know. I'm still waiting for this year's coquito, but we'll talk about that later. We have an informational presentation. Were we able to get him, Angel, or?
I didn't get a response back from Michael. I just left it on there in case he showed up.
Okay, so we'll table his presentation because we have dig in the zag. 117th Street, we already touched on. Congestion. Let's see, and I have congestion here. I had some notes on it. Second. I'm gonna have to put the notes. When I'm getting that, can we move to new business? We had bail reform, which the governor just put out And which is obviously very important. It's a very important subject considering the public safety issues that we've had in our community. Do we have the actual language there, Xavier? I mean, Angel? Or do I have to read it out?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The briefing, the proposal briefing that they sent us
Anything Xavier sent over?
in the email.
Yeah, give me 1 second, I'll put it up for you guys.
Thank you. While we're doing that, Governor Hoku, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing. I'm not sure, but the governor is actually trying to improve bail reform, and particularly in the issues that have happened and how we get it to be a better position. We're talking about repeat offenders, giving judges certain abilities. So I would like to put the information up. If not, I'll start to read through it. It's pretty long, so I'm going to start reading where she's actually putting, you have the email itself, the other one? This is the actual, yes, higher here. So it's a little lengthy, but where it says first, next to where it says to read 15, it says first. I think we should start there. The rest is kind of, yes, perfect. It says first, we need to address the problem of repeat offenders. Someone's committing a second or third offense while out of pretrial release, officers should be able to make an arrest and not be limited to, as they are in many cases, to issuing a desk appearance ticket. Similarly, hate crimes should be subject to arrest, not desk. You're gonna try to put it out. Go ahead. You want to put it in a document better? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds and I'll copy it over so we can make it look a little better. Don't read that. Okay, are you saying this document or planning to reshare?
Yeah, and we'll forward this to the whole committee. If you could also do that. That's big enough. I was reading it when it was tiny, but Charlie, put on your glasses. Don't try to make believe like you can read that, Charlie. Stop it. All right, let's. All right. Similarly, hate crime should be subject to arrest, not desk appearing tickets. And for repeat offenders, judges should be allowed to set bail, even if the crime would not currently be bail eligible. Second, we should make it possible for judges to set bail in all felony cases involving illegal guns, including when illegal guns are sold or given to minor, a crime that is astonishingly not currently bail eligible. Finally, for violent crimes and crimes involving guns, we should make it possible for judges to set more restrictive pre-trial conditions based on concrete criteria. Right now, all decisions about bail and pre-trial detention must be based solely on the least restrictive condition necessary to ensure the defendant returns to court. In domestic violence cases, the legislature already gave judges more factors to consider, such as whether the defendant has a history of firearms use or previously violated an order of protection. This is not a subjective dangerousness standard. Decision must be based on specific factual circumstances. We should apply this model based on what's already in the law for domestic violence to other serious crimes. These changes will improve our laws, and they won't suddenly reverse the rise in violence. They will require a holistic approach. We're already stepping up our efforts to stop the flow of illegal guns, support community-based violence interruption, and increase resources for local law enforcement. And we'll keep investing in solutions that work. Another key piece of the equation is mental health. We propose the changes to the law to better enable licensed mental health professionals to collaborate with crisis intervention teams and police. Along the same lines, we need to strengthen Kendra's law to make it easier for judges to require individuals who are struggling with serious mental illness and present a danger to themselves or others to participate in mandatory outpatient treatment. Along with these proposals, we should provide additional resources for more psychiatric beds at community-based hospitals and housing so that no one's turned away when they need help. We should all make it easier for people who have served their time to re-enter society successfully. That's why we are proud to have enacted less is more legislation so that individuals are not imprisoned for technical parole violations, and why we have proposed allowing people behind bars to participate in the state's tuition assistance program so they can come out of prison with more education and skills that they went in. We're going to forward you this whole package. It's kind of something that's happening now. Public safety, public sector. Wow. Okay. And this is obviously something that we have a lot of interest in. We have two hands up, Diane and Dawn. Dawn, go ahead, and Diane.
Actually, I had asked my question in the chat, but I think since the agenda is so packed, we might need to move it to the next meeting. I had a new business issue to add. And I didn't see anything on the agenda for bail reform, so I guess.
Yeah, we can talk about adding it for them.
Okay, so I just want to put on the record that I'd like to add a new business item to the next main meeting, I guess.
That's fine. Just
Or
reach out to me and we
today?
can talk about
Okay.
it. Diane, go ahead.
So are these items tied to the budget?
Correct.
Do we know?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, and so someone spoke? I'm sorry.
Let Xavier's here, our chair. He may give you a better insight. Go ahead, Xavier.
Hi, Jose, everyone. Thank you. I know we're pretty late into the evening. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. Yes, there was a chair invitational meeting from the governor's office dealing with these 10 points. I was presented a lot of the issues that we have discussed over the past several years were raised. They were unaware to some of the issues such as discovery reform, issues such as the crew gang violence. They were unaware of the recent sighting of the OPC over at Nairi on 125th. An invitation was extended to the governor to please take a site visit and to realize how there's certain sections of this would dovetail well. However, for lack of a better term, what they're trying to do is address those provisions of bail reform during the budgetary process that we have seen an impact on our community. And there was some reception to those recommendations, and it is part of it. And what was requested is that for our community boards to opine on it and therefore deliver that position, if you will, whether it's coming from the committee or if it gets ratified by the full board during the budget process, because right now there is a bit of a stagnation, as you've probably heard reported in the news, most recently today on 1010 Wednesday AM station. So that's where it is currently. So I hope that answered your question, Diane and Jose.
So I do believe that you're right. It's somehow or another tied to bail reform. I mean, the budget, and they may be trying to work those items out. I've always been concerned about knee-jerk reactions. I think the crack epidemic, when they locked up a lot of our young people, and now look back on it 20 years, was a knee-jerk reaction. And rather than a holistic approach, not to say that the police should be defunded, but clearly I think they need to look at it as to find the real source of the problem. And this is not going to be a fix overnight. This is going to be a fix that will take several years in the making. And so I think I have to read this. This is the first time I'm seeing it. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Jose. If I may respond back briefly, I think we're all in agreement on that. And I think that back in 2019, as was meted out to our current and previous electeds, is that the general construct of the legislation was altruistic in nature. However, it was, as one legislator at one point commented, was taking a hatchet to surgery, and that there would be consequences that would ensue due to the fact of defunding on several sectors. So again, as many of the dialogues have occurred over time, is that it's basically taking your training wheels off, no bike helmet, no crash mat, no safety, none of it. So I think this is, I would say it's about as close to a holistic measure. And I like that wording, because that's what we care about, is how do we cure and help the whole community, and be preventative in nature as well. And better to cure the cause than subdue the symptom. And I think we're all aligned on that. But this is one measure that was extended. I was asked to present it and have this particular committee and others that are relevant take it on for consideration. So thank you very much for your opinion on the matter. I value it very deeply, and open to others. So again, it's up to this committee to take a position or recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Xavier Kyoka.
Xavier, I just also wanted to say that I think there's a misconception that when we say bail reform, people think that we want to, or the need is to reform the entire bill. It's not. It's several pieces within the bill that put constraints on the judicial system in order to hold, in several cases, juveniles who are repeat offenders, who and also repeat offenders who have done things multiple times, because there's not a comprehensive image of them in front of a judge. And so it's not like, I hate to say this, but I'm gonna, I've got to say what I gotta say. I go to bed Black, I wake up Black, and I understand why bail reform was put in place so that we can have equity across the board. But there are some pieces that make it really difficult to convict and hold people accountable that are committing these high crimes. And so there's just a few things. It's not the whole thing. The bill was 50 pages long, and within that bill, there's only 3 main things that took up less than 2 of those pages that needs to be reformed in order for it to feel like, people are being arrested and being able to be kept, and the judge can make a decision on what, or what's in front of them to keep them, or to set a bail that's according to the crime.
Jose, may I?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Kyoga. And I value your contributions as well as a massive stakeholder, all of us here, and I agree with you, again, using the analogy as was shared, is doing surgery with a hatchet. There needed a more boutique response, and I think portions of this, when you deal with felony arrest and whatnot, should be considered. And how do we really? It's, again, with discovery reform, as consultations with several former and current prosecutors, they're limited. The judges can see, they can't apply. I think a real dialogue should occur. But again, this is working with the constraints of the infrastructure of our government. These are some options that were presented, as there is currently no appetite within the state Senate and Assembly to alter the current law, and it's at this moment. And I think this was the governor's extension to say, we can try these, we can make these attempts, these overtures, if you will. So, which is why we were meeting with chairs from all over this great city to have a deeper dive on it. And I would say that many of our communities of color have been greatly impacted by the legislation. and both good and bad. There have been some great successes, and on the other side, again, as you just opined, we're limited by what the mechanisms of law can apply with repeat offenders, et cetera, and so on. So I think, again, this is for the committee to discuss, but I thank you very much. That's a valued input.
Thank you, Xavier. Jessica?
Thanks, Jose. I think it's tough to drop some heavy, deep legislative progress on a committee and expect meaningful response without having had an opportunity to read through what's been put in front of us right now. I do say that what you're suggesting we partake in is a vocal recalibration where there is opportunity to adjust and begin tuning. I'll also just acknowledge, and this is sort of the pop culture version of Kyoka's sort of personal anecdote. It's, you know, the implications of the adjustments that have been made are not only affecting people in the pipeline of justice, but also those who are tasked with and responsible for applying justice, meaning prosecutors and defenders, that the responsibility has, in the paperwork, the administrative side of doing this, what's now been brought to law, is not sustainable, as far as I understand from having read the news. So doesn't, you know, breaking a system doesn't fix the problem. So I'm not sure how we move forward. I know that this asks for some homework to be done. And I'm not sure what the intention or goal is. You're suggesting that we take a position or make a statement. And I think that's always a great charge. I'm not sure what direction we're heading in that, and if we reach some sort of consensus as to what that voice and position should be before the end of the meeting tonight, or before full board at the end of the month. Is there a time frame on this? It's developing, and we've been asked to cajole the troops here. What are we doing with this, I guess, is my question.
Thank you, Jessica.
Sorry, I love
Xavier, if you don't mind, let me
yeah, carry on.
Look, because I don't want this to be theoretical. As you all know, guns are the biggest problem we have in our community in regards to public safety, particularly when a lot of people are using minors as the weapon, because they know that as a minor, you get caught with a gun, you can literally be out of the precinct the same day or within hours, if sometimes less. And there is an issue where you will see repeat offenders. And this was spoken at the police meet that we had, where the one of the inspectors, Kilga, what was the inspector's name? I forget off the top of my head. The one we had on third and
O'Connor.
Commissioner O'Connor, very knowledgeable. Impressive how much he knew. So if we look at it, we don't have the time to go into the language of the law, or what they're doing. However, we can make a statement on what's presented in front of us. We have a first, second, and the final, right? First, second, third. I think that it is our responsibility as a public safety transportation committee to take a position on this. This is something that's happening right now. We could talk about it until next month, but next month it may not be as important. So we have an issue with guns. This is addressing that issue. We have an issue with repeat offenders. This is addressing that issue in particular. So I honestly believe it's our responsibility to do something tonight in regards to this, because the language presented in front of us, right? Not the bill, because we're not lawyers. We're not going to get into that, but I think that we can do something with this first, second, and third, right? And if you look at it, I've read through it. But guns are a problem in our neighborhood. And this is addressing exactly that. Well, the older gang members they are pushing the guns onto the minors because they know a minor caught with a gun will be in and out of the precinct the same day. Do you know how many minors we have that are repeat offenders that are caught with guns? The number would astound you. Because they're doing it on purpose. They're using our youth, our minors, as the weapon. The gun isn't, they're the weapon. Because they know that they're able to go through the system. They know the laws. They know that there's a loophole currently there. And it's an issue.
Jose, can you commit to getting those numbers?
Yes, I wanted to have the O'Connor to come in and actually present because his information is really impressive. I mean, he knew these kids by name. And while I know them by name, because I'm from around here, for the most part, I didn't think that they were that knowledgeable. But his information, we're actually looking to have him on this committee. He already said he would come. It's just a matter of kind of table, like whether it's next month or the following. We're trying to work with his schedule. But Kyoko was also there. The information he presents, he can speak to you about individuals inside of every tenement here and tell you who has a problem with who in regards to where. But besides that information, we have a gun problem. And I'm telling you now, this is what they're doing. And they know that if they get caught with a gun, there's a mandatory charge. But they're making these young kids shooters because they know that if they get caught with a gun, they can walk out. And I've seen a kid have a shooting on 115 in the morning, and I've seen them be out by the afternoon. Go ahead,
I think
Jessica.
you've said that 3 times. I guess I'm just asking for a point of process. At which point did this come across your radar, and why
It's something that's happening now. I think we already shared that.
Well, no, I mean, I think they're,
youth violence. That's been a process here.
Jose, I'm talking about the language we're looking at now. And
no, I understand. They just came across us. As we told, this just came through us. That's why I'm asking to look at it.
I can't read it. It's far too small and I can't move it. So it's not.
Check your email. We also forwarded it to you. It should have just been in your email. When Angel started the presentation, he forwarded it to the entire committee. It might be easier to open it that way.
I'm happy to read it and report back next month, or, I
thank you.
I'm going to have to abstain.
Do we have any other questions
or anything?
I just have a question for Jessica. I wanted to know are you looking for stats for the youth violence within our community or to correlate with what we're trying to push? Or, well, because I'm not a part of the committee, but I definitely am pushing for the same thing. What numbers, what numerical values are you looking for?
That's a good question, Kyoko. What numbers do you think would make a strong case to put forward to say, hey, this matters?
Absolutely. So Kevin O'Connor, who is the Assistant Commissioner of the NYPD, I actually work with him. He is a great person to get stats from, because what's actually happening right now is that the state is pushing stats that is not correlated. But if you look at the stats of the shootings and the murders, just looking at just East Harlem alone, it contradicts everything that they're saying. So I can ask him to forward me whatever documents, if he can't make it, whatever statistical information, if that makes sense, and I'll definitely send it to Jose, or I can have it at the next council meeting and Jose can bring it back to you guys.
It'd be great, Kyoko, if you do have some numbers that really make the case for what's the story that's not being told in East Harlem, if that's what you're suggesting. Absolutely, that's something to act on and to respond to. And I'm happy to support it if I understand what it is. But I'm not really sure. In theory, if we're supporting something in theory, Jose, which is what I think you're asking us, yeah, we agree, that's a problem. What are we saying? Why does it matter? And what does it add up to? Is what I'm suggesting makes a powerful statement, not just us saying it's a problem.
No, it's not what I'm saying at all. right? So the language before us is very specific. It's addressing about repeat offenders. It's regarding making it possible for judges to bail in felony cases involving guns, particularly when illegal guns are sold or given to minors. So I'm not talking about a very kind of open-ended question, being very specific to the information presented before us. Right? So there were 3 notes, and I'll read it through again. The first one says we need to address the problem of repeat offenders. If someone is committing a second or third offense while out on a pretrial release, officers should be able to make an arrest and not limited to, as they are in many cases, to issuing a desk appearance ticket. Similarly, hate crimes should be subject to arrest, not desk appearance tickets. And for repeat offenders, judges should be allowed to set bail even if the crime would not currently be bail eligible. So this is not a theoretical, it's very specific. Second, we would make it possible for judges to set bail in all felony cases involving guns, including when illegal guns are sold or given to minors, a crime that is astonishingly not currently bail eligible. And finally, for violent crimes and crimes involving guns, we should make it possible for judges to set more restrictive pretrial conditions based on concrete criteria. Right now, all decisions about bail and pretrial detention must be based solely on the least restrictive condition necessary to ensure the defendant returns to court. In domestic violence cases, the legislature already gave judges more factors to consider, such as whether the defendant has a history of firearm use or previously violated an order of protection. So that's what we're talking about in particular, right? So not the overall problem, but this very concrete language presented before us. Xavier, is that a new hand or?
Yeah, and it's
Go ahead.
it's a final summary with this. Again, this was presented. It was sprung on me last minute, and I appreciate everyone's patience. I think it's important upon all of us to remain some degree of flexibility within this environment while we still have the virtual option where we're not having to wait 2-3 weeks before convening, and we can be more proactive in our approach. I've taken a great interest on this from the moment we had a discharge of a firearm on our block pre-COVID, right before we rolled into the pandemic. And since then, we've seen an escalation. Jose, Angel, myself, and others have had a multitude of conversations, our former chair, Nilsa Rama, so many others on this community board. We have seen the limitations, including but not limited to, and that's why I mentioned discovery reform and allowing availability of insight and information so they comply. So the judges are allowed to apply a more judicial approach when it comes to repeat offenders, and also to the key word that Jose referred to, or not keyword, key phrase, when it comes to applying other modalities for what I would most aptly call intervention. When we have repeat youth offenders, there's nothing that requires them to be diverted into a program to prevent further harm to their future. And that is the bigger construct we're dealing with as well. When it comes to youth crew violence, we care about our children in this community. We want to reach these kids and prevent them on a path, and they are being manipulated. I think that's a larger issue we have to look at, because again, at the beginning of the conversation, it was an altruistic measure. However, it didn't look at the preventative measures needed to divert adaptation in the moment. And the judges will take the minimal approach, given the constructs of how judges are put into positions to adjudicate crimes within New York State. And this is a larger construct we must take into consideration. But again, these are recommendations. I leave it with this committee. Thank you, Jose, and everyone here. We all care, and it's not a matter about being on the side right. It's about being on the side of a course correction for our community, so we can cease the harm of future generations. And that's really what it is. So I'll leave it with you, all to discuss and debate. And thank you very much for the consideration.
Thank you, Xavier. Do we have any other questions or comments on this?
So Jose, I raised my hand.
Yep, I see you.
Once again, whenever it comes to this legalese, I always find that it's vague. And it forces you to have more questions about it. And from what I'm Googling, they seem like they're coming to some agreement on I guess this particular portion of the budget. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't know what you and Xavier are looking for, comments, but honestly, my comment, I can't vote. I can't make any comments about this. It's just too emotional sometimes when I start to think about what are the lessons learned from the crack epidemic when the community was crying to do something about it, locked up so many youth in their prime years, and now setting them out as elders, and they can't find a job, they can't do any work. So what are we trying to repeat the same cycle again for another 50 years? It's very, that's why I'm saying it's an emotional response to what we're trying to do. Not to say that bail reform, we shouldn't look at bail reform. My always concern is that the people of color are the ones most adversely affected. Black, brown, yellow. Those are the people most and historically have been affected. So it's difficult for me to even talk about how we're gonna move forward with what I consider very vague language here. And then again, the issue is, okay, so we give them, they can't pay the bail. Then we got the same problem that we've always had at Rikers Island, because everyone knows that Rikers Island is a holding cell. It's not prison, it's holding. And so we have the same issue over and over. So I'm not comfortable with the language that's in here tonight. And I don't see how we can make a decision. Well, we could, but I don't see how I can make a decision.
No, our task is to have a discussion.
Oh, okay. Well then,
so we're discussing it. I will say that a lot of the things that are in this language are things that this community board is always talking about. I mean, I understand what these kind of laws do to minorities, right? Unfortunately, I've had enough family and friends locked up for a significant amount of time. But we do have an issue, and our job is to discuss it. Because at some point, it doesn't have to be tonight, but bail reform as it currently is has certain limitations. The ability for someone to have a gun, and maybe it hasn't happened to those individuals here, but I mean, it was a few weeks ago that someone pulled a gun on one of my dispatchers right here over a very minor situation. And then she was terrorized to leave or go to work, or it took her about a month and a half to kind of get her emotions down. That gentleman later on ended up getting killed in a skirmish just because he was from Johnson. Guns are an issue. We can't ignore this, right? So while I understand that the overall conversation may be confusing to some and not understand why we're having it, but a repeat offender, the language that I see, it's a lot of the things that we've been talking about. And again, we're having a discussion. We don't have to do anything more than discuss it. But at one point, I do think that we need to have serious talks, because like I said, it's not that the minors are just picking up guns. People that are older are using them, knowing the law, and they're telling them what to do and saying, you're the one that's going to carry this gun. I mean, there's a reason why they're the ones that are always carrying the gun. We have Michelle, Dawn, Xavier. That's a new hand or an old hand? Both hands, okay. So go ahead, Michelle, and then Dawn.
Well, I was reading it because I'm thinking that this almost seems like giving a leeway to the 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing that was in the past. And instead of saying something like that, is giving the judicial system more of a nuance, because repeat offenders have found ways to find loopholes. And here it's more of saying, okay, well, you found this loophole, we're finding the loopholes within the loopholes, and going not necessarily just for the predators that are being the ones that are being used as tools, the children, but trying to find ways to go after the predators. So I mean, this is the way I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, because I am not accustomed to the language that it is written in. Do you think that this is what they're trying to do when they're with these items here? Or are they really trying to demonize a whole population? And I don't think that's what they're trying to do. So it's more of a comment.
Understand. I think that they hear from our community saying that we have a youth violence issue, particularly with guns. And they know that a minor can get caught with a gun and released. So we're complaining about this. This is a complaint coming from the community board. It's a complaint from the community. Summer's coming, and it's gonna get worse, as you all know from experience. So, this is, we're talking about someone who gets caught with a gun 2-3 times. It's an issue. Dawn, then Cindy.
Thanks so much. I was trying to read, along. One of the things that's come up a lot, I find recently, is that there needs to be more stop and frisk. There needs to be more, searching people and making.
Stop and frisk is illegal. Can't really.
Right.
We can't ask for that. That's not gonna.
Right, but we have groups of 5 going out, right? And
now we have the new safety team but within, we have to remember that stop and frisk is so they're gonna do their stops based on the law.
Right. So just going back to what Diane was saying, my memory of stop and frisk when our community was at the height of stop and frisk, I had like a short little afro, and I was getting stopped every day, every other day, right? Because people assumed I was a Black male, and I was being stopped. I got stopped on 99th Street by a white van going the wrong way that pulled to a stop, and all the cops jumped out with guns pointed towards me. And all they would do is when they saw I was a woman, they would just walk away. They wouldn't even apologize, right? So to Diane's point, I've seen situations where the officers will just look for the low-hanging fruit, right? They grab the easy prey, the kid who's, the little kid. They don't grab.
That's not what we're discussing here. I mean,
I know, but they don't. But
right,
I'm just saying
we're being very specific in the language that we're talking about. Because I mean, in the height of stop and frisk, I'm from East Harlem. I used to go to City College in West Harlem for school. That's where I graduated from. I got stopped every day because I had a nice truck with 24-inch rims. Literally had my vehicle searched
It's not okay
3-4 times a week.
It's not okay to demonize a whole group.
Right, but we're not demonizing a whole group. We're like, you have to look. I want you to look at the language. We're having a conversation about the language presented. That's all we're doing. We're discussing, right? So we can't, we're kind of making it very, when we're talking about illegal guns, most of this is involving illegal guns, which is an issue in our community. And it's regarding the problem of repeat offenders.
Right, but who's carrying illegal guns? Black males are carrying illegal guns. So that means my son can get stopped and other Black people can get stopped and a woman who has a short haircut can get stopped. And how are you going to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, that's why this new team has body cameras, and they're, you know, they're very, the education that they go through is very different. Right? We're not talking about stop and frisk, but Kyoko could probably help give more insight. Go ahead, Kyoko.
Just really quickly, because I think that you're mixing up the two, right? So the police officers have nothing to do with bail reform. This is about the law. So currently, if we're talking about stop and frisk, they could do that, and it has nothing to do with it. It wouldn't impact bail reform. So I'll just give you an example of why we're talking about bail reform. If I get raped on 125th Street, nowhere near my house, right? Part of the law says that now the person that raped me, once we go to court, can have my address. That is a piece of what we want to change within bail reform, because they now have the discovery package, right? So that's a part. This has nothing to do with arrest. Part of the bail reform that we're speaking about is, I don't know if you guys knew that I wrote the pilot program for precincts to have greeters in the precinct. So I used to stand there and listen while the offender was yelling in the back, "I don't know why you're arresting me, because I'm gonna just go back out and get him right now." And technically that's what's gonna happen. So he could be arrested with a gun, right? He gets a DAT and they have to release him. So no longer can they keep him unless they know, if they have some history in the background, to know that he's been arrested 4 times. Once they get to the judge has no comprehensive information on them, especially if they're a minor. So if they go to family court, they've been arrested 4 times for holding a gun. That family court judge that they're seeing does not see the last 3 arrests. So that's what we're asking a change for. Because if a person continues to go out there and do the same crime, then something has to change and be different, so that they know that you're being held because you're doing this crime in this way. And this is a crime that you're either going to kill somebody, or that's the thought process, so that they can set bail, so they can think twice about carrying a gun again. That's what bail reform is about. This is not about the police arresting people. This has nothing to do with them. Because
I was just talking
arresting
more about being detained, about whether you can be detained and how long you can be held.
But that has nothing to do with bail reform.
Okay.
Because they can still do that right now, if that was the case. This is more about the judicial system and the laws that are preventing the judicial system for making viable cases and keeping them either locked up or giving them a bail that they would have to think twice about before they do this crime yet again.
I hear you. So I'm looking at the language that's on the screen versus the language I have in the email, and it's not the same. So maybe I need to.
It's the same language. It's just
this is from Hochul's letter?
Yes, it's the same exact. Angel literally copied and pasted it just to make it bigger.
All right, I'm looking for the. I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to discuss. If we're all supposed to just agree.
We're discussing the things
I can just
presented in
agree.
front of you.
Okay.
The things that I've read 3 times now.
Jose, may I offer a point of clarification for
Sure,
Don?
Jessica, go ahead.
Don's question. Pardon me, I had to leave for 10 minutes to read the thing that was put forward yesterday around noontime that was not forwarded to committee members until 8:38 p.m. after we begun the discussion. There are 2 things to look at. One is considered an op-ed that was published in the New York Daily News. The other, Don, is a PDF of the governor's 10 points, 10-point public safety proposal. I think Jose and Angel, what I understand you may, Jose and Xavier, what I understand you may be asking the committee to do is to set in motion the potential for a resolution that would essentially approve of or support the governor's 10-point public safety proposal. Based on a lot of the fact finding yet to be done with statistics that show where some of these issues have not necessarily played out as intended, specifically in East Harlem. And Kuka, that would be if we could work together to get some numbers and some statistics that could illustrate those points. I think those would make strong whereas statements if we were to, in theory, get behind something like this. I think it's so important to be informed about what we're being asked to support that is in regard to a long-standing, deeply rooted set of issues in East Harlem. And I am fully all about that, with nodding heads, thumbs up, and jumping up and down. But unless it's clear what kinds of actions we as a committee are able to take, and how those actions can go from the idea of taking action right now in our committee meeting to a point where we put words to paper, if that's the goal, in a meaningful and powerful way that points to some of the longstanding issues in East Harlem. It's not clear what we're being asked to do right here now tonight at 9:17.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because so we're not going straight with the op-ed, like we're not adopting that way of thinking. We're just using that as a discussion point, I guess. All right, so are we voting on anything? Because I'm not really
Jose?
sure.
Go ahead,
Jose?
Xavier.
Yeah, so what we were asked from the governor's office is to opine on the 10-point plan. Not necessarily, the op-ed is separate and apart. It's more a positional explanation, but rather the plan and what they are putting forward. If this committee is so inclined to say, yes, we agree with X, Y, and Z, but this part we have concerns, that is what this committee is, we should opine on. However, again, we're midstream budget process. This was dumped on last minute, and I think it was mainly because of the stalemate between the Senate and the Assembly, and trying to find some agreement that was not acrimonious. Again, because the initial pushback was, we don't want to change anything in the law. And there was a lot of outreach from concerned community organizations outside of community boards. It would be important for us to consider it. And I have heard both Diane and Dawn and Jessica and everyone who's a part of it, Michelle, we want to do the right thing. So I think we ask ourselves the hard question is, what parts of these are not working? We've weighed out that the gun violence has increased, and we've seen that the revolving door has circled around many, many times. We've also seen issues with hand-to-hands, which has been opined upon by the R25 and 23. So we ask ourselves the question, what of, and the term used, a low-hanging fruit, what are the portions of this that we feel more inclined to support, and what are the others we'd like to park and have more analysis? So that's really what we weigh out. And again, I don't think what was relayed by Marcos.
Xavier, could you? I'm sorry to. Angel, could you put the 10-point while Xavier's speaking?
Yeah, thank you, Jose. I appreciate it. It makes it a little bit easier.
I have the 10-point. I just have to. I have to have 2 laptops to look at them. So that's what I'm looking at.
I think he's trying to pull it up right now.
Yeah, but I can't. I'm reading it on my other laptop because I can't read it from the presentation. But I appreciate it.
Thank you. First, second century, whatever, 21st, 22nd century, where are we? So again, this committee, look at those points. Again, I was asked to present it. I'm presenting it to you. We've all had these deep, difficult conversations. We all know the history from 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, and what we went through, the travails. When there was a 5-to-1 ratio of policing, and we asked for more police up here, we didn't foresee stop and frisk. When we asked during the crack cocaine epidemic, and we asked for clinics to help us, we didn't foresee the saturation. These are the realities we face, and how do we deal with it in a holistic, and that's the word it's been bandied about. How do we deal with this holistically? So take a look. If there are parts you agree with, fine. That's what the governor would like to know. If you're saying, hey, public safety and transportation agrees with X, Y, and Z, great. We agree with all, great. We agree with none, okay, fine. Then we have to take that under consideration, but that's what the request was. So that's where it is. I'm going to leave it to this committee to do its work, and I appreciate the time and patience and for taking it under last minute, but we are in the middle of budget negotiations, and thank God we can be virtual. Jose, I'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Xavier. So look, this was something last minute. Xavier pointed that out. I had a conversation with him today. I actually saw the email today. I missed it yesterday. But there are serious things to consider, you know, and all the concerns that you're bringing up are correct. However, let's just go through it, look at it, and then that's it. This was our task, to consider it. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to put a position on it tonight. Angel, could you scroll up? Just kind of the way up. So the number one, you got to go up. Let's start with number one, and we'll just do. So we're gonna read this part here. It says bail reform for the most serious felonies allow bail determinations to be informed by factors including criminal history and history of firearm use and possession. A summary. For the most serious felonies, similar to the legislative model already adopted in New York State law for domestic violent cases, judges will be allowed to set bail not based solely on the least restrictive condition deemed necessary to ensure a return to court. The statute will set forth specific criteria on which judges will base the determination, including criminal history and history of firearm use possession. Let's go to number two. They'll reform, make repeat offenses subject to arrest and bail eligible. For offenses that are not currently subject to arrest, police will have the ability, though not the requirement, to deny a desk appearance ticket. An arrested individual who had previously received a DAT within 18 months. All second offenses within a certain period of time will be bail eligible. Number three. Make certain gun-related offenses, hate crime offenses, and subway crime offenses subject to arrest and not a DAT. Certain offenses which present are subject to desk appearance tickets will be made only eligible for arrest. Let's go to four. Make gun-related offenses bail eligible. Certain gun-related offenses will be made bail eligible. Currently, they are not. Number five, make it easier to prosecute gun trafficking. This will reduce the number of guns someone who has to sell to the subject to penalties for gun trafficking. Currently, 10 guns must be involved for someone to be charged with a Class B felony, and 5 guns must be involved for someone to be charged with a Class C felony. Following legislation that has already been introduced in both houses, this will reduce these thresholds to 3 and 2 guns, respectively, within 1 year period, and make the possession of 3 or 4 firearms presumptive evidence of intent to sell. So number 6, targeted reforms of the discovery statute. 3 changes will improve the discovery statute, allow prosecutors to be deemed in substantial compliance with the discovery statute. Right now, a case can be dismissed for failure to turn over any document, even when all its content have previously been provided in a different form. Make a conforming technical change to enable a case to proceed once the prosecutor has turned over all locatable materials. Language in the current law providing for unavailable materials appear in CPL 24550, but it is missing from a CPL 24580, and therefore cannot be effectuated. Exclude traffic infractions from the discovery requirements. The burden is substantial, makes it very hard to pursue traffic infractions. 7. I feel like they're getting longer. Yeah. Raise the age statute. We have seen a dramatic increase in the number of teens under 18 carrying guns with juvenile gun arrests, up from 174 in 2018 to 439 in 2021, which is what, like a 300% increase. More than a quarter of these had a prior gun arrest. The raise the age statute will be amended in 3 narrow ways. First, gun possessions will be sufficient to allow but not require a judge to keep a case in criminal court. Right now, prosecutors must show that the firearm was displayed. Second, the law will give youth part judges the authority to access family court records, and all parties to the youth part proceeding would have the access to family court records for the purpose of setting bail, determining appropriate resources, needs of the defendant, and sentencing recommendations. The records that are made available to the prosecution and defense can be resealed following the resolution of the case. Finally, a gap in the statute when defendants who are alleged to have committed a crime before the age of 18 are not arraigned until they turn 18. In most cases, no court has jurisdiction over the offense. Will be addressed by granting jurisdiction to family court over any person who are charged with committing a crime when they are under 18. Increased funding for pretrial diversion employment programs. Okay, so the executive budget already proposes 83.4 million in new funding to address gun violence and support pretrial services. More funding will be added for pretrial services, including voluntary support for any case which the defendant is released on their own recognizance. Mandatory programming. All right, so basically, I'm going to go through this because it's regarding funding for these programs. Number 9 is expand involuntary commitment in Kendra's law. The executive budget includes a number of modest proposals to strengthen Kendra's law. More recently, the governor proposed new spending on mental health services, and the state issued interpretive guidance to expand the use of the voluntary commitment statute. Important additional expansion of our ability to address acute needs to be seriously mentally ill, however, will be changed to the statutory standard for involuntary commitment in Kendra's law to apply to individuals who pose a danger to themselves through self-neglect. Number 10, increase funding for mental health treatment. Executive budget committed 21 million for safe option support, SOS, teams to help individuals move off the street into stable housing and where needed, access mental health and social services. In addition, the governor's housing plan includes funding for 10,000 supportive housing units. Further, a recent joint announcement by Governor Hochul and Major Adams include funding for 140 additional safe haven beds, 350 new stabilization beds, 600 psychiatric hospital beds, and 500 scattered site supportive housing units. Additional funding will be committed to further increase mental health services and housing capacity, specifically transitional respite housing and additional permanent supportive housing units. Those are the 10. Out of those 10, obviously, there are some that I think are easier to discuss. Anything related with a gun is kind of an easier conversation to have, at least in my opinion. But go ahead, Cindy, and then Dawn.
Thank you. Well, I have some issues with the bail reform as it stood. These requests are reasonable. My concerns are on number 2. For
Angel, can you
offenses that
scroll
are
up to number 2, please? What we're discussing with Sunday.
for offenses that are not currently subject to arrest, police will have the ability, though not the requirement, to deny a desk appearance ticket or an arrest of an individual who has previously received a DAT within 18 months. Is this specific? I would need to know, like, is this specific to gun-related incidents, or is this just anyone who has received a desk appearance ticket? Because if it is something that's just a blanket statement, just if you've received a desk appearance ticket within 18 months, somebody could be held in Rikers Island, and that will bring up, I believe, some of the issues that we had with the 3 strikes law. And I understand and hear a lot of the concerns that other community members have brought up. with the level of harassment that our community has received in the past when these policies were being implemented. So I believe we need a bit more clarity on number 2. And also, if our children are being used as, carriers of guns in order to facilitate whatever purpose they may have within the crew or anything like that, we definitely need to put a huge spotlight on this, as we want to make sure that our children have an opportunity to explore other options and understand that they're being abused and used for criminal. Like we should, as a community, we may need to better understand how these children are being involved in these criminal activities, so we can provide an exit point for them. And that's my comment.
I agree 100% with the vagueness of number 2.
Can I ask a point of clarification, Cindy? Your second part about the sort of youth handoff, does that fall into 7 targeted reforms of raise the age statute?
Let's see, number 7.
It does.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so you took up with 2 and 7, correct?
That is correct. Which reminds me, the actually acquiring data to better understand how this is happening in our community from Commissioner O'Connor would be an incredible asset for us to be able to better understand where these minors are coming in and how we can actually provide, again, an exit point for them.
Yeah, he'll be coming to our committee in the very near future.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, let me see, we have Dawn and then Michelle.
So Jose, thanks so much for reading through that, and thanks Cindy for clarifying that. So at this point, I agree with what Kyoka explained, which I'm not sure which numbers those fall within. I agree with what she explained. I am concerned about number 2 and number 7, because I thought you could get a desk appearance for jumping a turnstile. Wasn't that, I mean, we had this issue when we went to the MTA about the fare increases and about the like the students' bus passes only went till like 7 o'clock and they needed them to go till 9 or something like that. I just wonder.
Is that in
like
regards to number
saying,
2? I'm sorry.
Yeah, number 2. I mean, you can.
Right. No, I agree with number 2. I think number 2 is much too vague. What's the issue with 7?
Oh, I guess, I worry about how youth get tied into this, and how, and like Cindy said, people having different pathways, right? So I sent my son to take out the garbage once, and a guy gave him $2, right? So what happens if I send my kid to take out the garbage and the guy says, here, I'll give you 100, go across the street, right? And then he's caught with the book bag, and the guy who sent him is never persecuted, but the kid now is part of the system and is part of, the criminal justice system or whatever. I just wonder
But number 7 relates to gun possession, not.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the raise the age? I'm sorry.
Raise the age. They're asking the amendment to be very narrow, right? The first one would be gun possession.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is actually to allow family court, right? Currently, and this is something that O'Connor explained, where family court, because they're minors, it's very limited to how they, like who can see their records. So a lot of times a judge can actually not see if he had a prior.
Oh, okay. So I do
charge.
agree. I thought I spoke to Kyoko about this at length, and
Right.
I do agree with that. I guess
And then it gets resealed. It gets resealed afterwards, but during the trial, he's able to see if this particular minor has had a previous whatever
I
He
see.
basically
I
sees
see.
his record, which currently now he cannot see the record.
Right, but kids are still on their own pretty much, right? They like, if they're targeted by older gang members, they just have to know not to get involved, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard. It's easier said than done. You grew up in the Johnson projects,
That's what
and
I'm
everyone
saying.
around you is pushing you to do something. You know, that's why they're still treated as kids, but it allows the judge to see. And this is in regards to gun possession, right? So
Right.
We're not
Okay.
talking about he gets caught in the street and in the fight. It's very specific, right?
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I myself had an issue with number 2 from the beginning. 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. I don't know why I skipped 6, but I thought we're very good. Oh, I thought I skipped 6 because it's more legalese, and I would need a little more experience to actually go through that. That's why I skipped. I felt comfortable with 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. And these are all regarding firearm use. Jessica, go ahead.
Just want to express some support for number 10. I think there are other committees.
Oh yeah, I'm
in
not
this
opposed
room.
to it, by the way. I'm just saying that was more fun. I put that in the funding. 8, 9, and 10 are funding. So yeah, I am not opposed to
And number 6 was that discovery. training.
discovery, and I just don't know enough about it.
Well, so Jose, that's what I was talking a little bit about with it burdening the system far beyond kind of what was intended to the point where vast numbers of attorneys are resigning because of the burden on them now administratively for data and discovery related requirements. They can't do their job anymore. There's too much to do. Not that there wasn't enough to do before. Unintended consequences, I think.
Michelle?
I don't know if it was there somewhere along the way, but a way for there to be an addition where they can go after the people that have been preying on them, so that yes, the youth are used as tools, but to just give them ways to come out of that circle of being used, but also to go after the perpetrators and not just let them be by the wayside. I think that that's an important thing to be added into these 10.
It's just hard thing to prove, Michelle. Like
I know it's hard to prove.
It's a great thing to, like, you know, saying it is one thing, but the practicality of it, you know, it's hard because most of these kids won't even say who's putting them up to it. You know, they live by very close means. They going, you know, it's like they're going back home to these same housing developments. So it's very hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
I know quite a few of these kids, and it's, you know, they're like, it's not so easy to just say it, you know, because I'm going back home. That's where my mom lives. That's where my grandma lives. And I can't say anything really. It's tough. It's a very hard situation. That's why I think a lot of times, you know, the programs have to catch them at a much earlier age, you know, that. And I definitely agree that going for these higher up in the gangs, right? Because NYPD sees them as gangs. That should be their objective, to go for the heads, because that's absolutely the cause of this. That's something that we can definitely have a conversation with this new, program that's going in.
Jose, may I offer a kind of a nod to try to focus our discussion and identify if we have a goal. I think you rightly called out 8, 9, and 10 being connected to funding and this discussion having bubbled up out of a budget season. I think, if we're looking for a sort of a point to push or maybe 3 or 4, I think we could boil it down to 3 or 4, strong statements that would advance some of these points. Alternatively, we could, and I don't think this is something that would be complete or finished at the end of this meeting, but there is always work to be done, and the committee can, support something in its nature before it's written. We've seen that happen before. If we're not comfortable with that because of the sensitivity of so many of these things, then it's something that would get picked up at the committee again next month for some fine tuning. If we are unwilling to move at that pace, or for some reason ill-advised to, then we would need to reach consensus on what we were going to make a statement on, whether it's 3 points that specifically support this particular aspect of the governor's plan, or whether we're generally making statements with regard to the situation in East Harlem that correspond to some of these points in the governor's plan. So I guess I'm just asking for some clarity on what our timeline is and goal for reaching consensus. Those are 2 separate things, I think, timeline and kind of what our goal is, if we have a sense of it. We may not.
Timeline is interesting because, like I said, all of this was kind of dropped in on us today. But it is happening now. And if we want to have any kind of relevance, we should put a position today on whatever makes us feel comfortable speaking.
Furthermore, I think it's in my mind, it's not so much a question of a statement of support or a letter of support, but this is an opportunity to really pull together a strong series of whereas statements that reference the particular issues at play in East Harlem, and can then call on agreeing with or
well, tonight's
partially
mission
agreeing
would
with.
be on whether or not, and we don't have to take a position at all, right? But these are the 10 points presented in front of us. If there are some of these points that we can find agreement and in support of, then we can make a statement in regards to our support of those particular positions.
Where I was going was suggesting a resolution, Jose.
And I understand, but but it would be in the context of these 10 points. So we can make a resolution on our own another time. But if we're going to have any input in regards to these 10 points, and obviously the governor wants us to have some kind of input, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this late, right? Because it's 9:45. But it is important. So it's up to, I don't like 2. I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% against 2. It's way too vague. I think 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are very easy to say you could be in support of. These are all regarding firearm use, right? Number 1 is in regard to firearm use. Number 3, obviously we're skipping 2. Number 3 is making certain gun-related offenses, hate crimes offenses, and subway crime offenses subject to arrest, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Number 4 is make gun-related offenses bail eligible, which means that. Okay, so that's, again, pretty straightforward, right? It involves guns. Number 5 is make it easier to prosecute gun trafficking. It's lowering from, what was the number, 5 and 10 and 5 to 2 and 3. Honestly, no one should, having 1 gun is problematic enough. If you get caught with 2 to 5 guns, now they're going to put you as your intent to sell. That's number 5. Number 6 is discovery, which I agree, but I don't have enough experience to really talk But I mean, I read through it and I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'm not sure if the committee would feel comfortable with it. I'm first pointing out the easier ones. Number 7 is targeted reforms on the raise the age statute. Right, so gun possession will be, they're asking for 3 very narrow things. Gun possession would be sufficient to allow for a judge to open a criminal court, even if you're a minor. No longer would your records be sealed, so a judge can unseal your records to seal what has happened before, and then after the case, you're still a minor, so it gets sealed again. But currently, as actually Kilka pointed out to me and O'Connor, a family court judge only sees what's present in front of him. He can't see what you did a week, a month, a year, 2 years ago, right? So he has no information as to anything that happened before. So those are the 5 that I thought were easier. Number 2 was very suspicious. 6, discovery, which, yeah, makes a lot of sense, but I'm not sure how the committee feels about it. 8, 9, 10 is regarding funding, which is, never a bad thing, particularly when it's funding for mental health, which is what number 10 is. And the other ones are funding, to keep these minors, to make them go to certain programs afterwards. So, I mean, it's up to the committee now, how you guys feel and what position you want to take. If this is what you want to do, we'll move forward. And if it's not, then, it is what it is.
So you're saying that 2 and 6 is the one that's iffy, right?
2 and 6.
Right.
2 are definitely iffy. The language is way too vague. It doesn't specify gun-related charges. It could do anything from anything you do. So that I wouldn't agree with number 2 regardless. Okay. Number 6 is about discovery. It basically says, as long as the information's been presented, doesn't have to be presented exactly in the new form. Like currently, some cases can be thrown out based on, certain materials, even though the material is presented independently within the case, has to be presented all together in a certain format. And if it's not done that way, then the whole case can get dismissed.
Right. Okay.
Which doesn't make sense, right? Because now you're dealing with technicalities. But, it is something more legalese, which if we don't feel comfortable speaking about, I'm fine with that. But the first 5 that I spoke to, which is 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7, pretty straightforward. 8, 9, 10 is about funding, so I don't know why anyone would be against that. Number 8 is in regards to funding programs that increase funding for pretrial diversion and employment programs, right? So this is something we absolutely need, employment programs, not just locking people up. I have a few guys that work for me that they're, that they haven't been able to get a job, and I gave them a job, and they, every so often they have to go see their guy, but it's an issue. Number 9 is involuntary commitment in Kendrick's law. So it depends. So 9 is a little bit of funding, but not all. And number 10 is funding for mental health treatment. So again, I leave it up to the committee what you want to do. If you want to agree to some of these, if you want to not say anything, that's up to it as well. But let's make a decision because it's almost 10 o'clock. Michelle, you have your hand raised?
I think that we can agree to disagree with number 2.
Correct.
I think we can agree to partially disagree with links with 7. I think that we can just go through each one of them.
Why 7, Michelle?
I think it was 7, wasn't it?
No, I think 6 is a discovery.
Okay,
7 is in regards to raise the age statute, and it's that the conditions are very narrow, which is in gun possession, and allowing a family court judge to unseal that individual's records to see what he engaged in prior, and then to seal them afterwards.
Okay.
I would support everything except number 2, honestly. But that's just me, and I want everyone to feel comfortable if we're gonna take a position on it. It's up to, but let's it's a yay, it's a yay, it's a no, no. It's
And
a
which one is the one that has the intent to sell? The one that it goes
number
from
5, I believe.
number 5?
Number 5 is, I'll tell you right now.
More than one gun, 2 guns.
Yeah, prosecute gun trafficking. Currently, it's 10 and 5. So to be a Class B felony, you have to have 10 guns, and to have a Class C, you have to have 5 guns. But that would be reduced to 3 and 2.
And how much?
You should have no business having 5 guns. You should have no business having 1 gun. I mean, 5. That's. I don't even know we have quorum anymore to vote on this paper. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're still good. We lost Jessica, but we're still good.
Oh, we don't have quorum?
We do.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Can I read the motion I put in the chat?
Please remember that no motions in the chat.
Okay, so I'm gonna read out. I put it there just so someone could say, "Oh, that doesn't even make any sense." But I'm gonna read it since I didn't hear anything back. So, I was going to make a motion to strongly support the 10-point plan, with the exception of number 2, as it is not tied to a gun-related crime.
I like that motion. Anyone second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Carlos Diaz seconds that motion. Angel, can we do a roll call vote? See if we
Leal
have
Morana,
yes.
Erica Cancela, Diane Collier,
No.
Carlos Diaz,
Yes.
Judith Ferraro,
Abstain.
Jose Garcia,
Yes.
Marissa Mack, Jessica Morris, Miguel Pava, Don Sanders,
Yes.
Michelle Wilcher Clement.
Yes. Well said, Dawn.
The motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. We have the governor to thank for our late night. We could also blame our chair a little bit, but he's just passing the message. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate the time, the work it takes. So have a good night. We'll be in touch soon. And thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good job, all.